All right, boys, how about a little would you rather to start this Tuesday morning, all right?
I like this.
I
Let's
like
go.
it.
Especially
Okay.
on a rainy morning. Let's go.
Would you rather stand out on the circle for the next 2 minutes and 14 seconds or listen to the national anthem from last night's home run derby one more
Did you
time?
finally listen to it? Oh, you had to love it, didn't you?
I didn't listen to it right when you said. Now, first off, when you texted us last night, did you guys see the national anthem? I thought to myself, dear Lord, this has got to be bad. Like, for you to, I mean, we obviously text, but like, for you to reach out and be like, were you watching that?
Yeah,
you don't
because
do that.
you guys are in the midst of your evening. Maybe it's a bath night at the Bowen household.
Bath
I don't know what's
night.
going on at 8:05
We
p.m.
try to make sure every night is close to bath night, although,
All
you
right,
know.
Maddie, I'm jumping in for my turn.
Yeah, well, it rained outside. Just
Yeah.
run the kids outside
go
for a
outside,
few minutes, and
throw a
that'll
little soap.
qualify as bath night. I thought to myself, you know what? I'm not going to watch it. I'm going to wait until we get to the show here on Tuesday morning because obviously something happened last night. And then I just saw more and more people talking about it, and I thought to myself, you know what? I'm going to cave into peer pressure. So I listened. I had Maddie listen, and the amount of oh no's from Maddie throughout the 2 minutes or so was quite something. Should we know this girl, Ingrid?
No.
Okay, so last night in Texas, it was Ingrid Andress, who is a country music singer and songwriter, although last night showed very little evidence that she is a singer or a songwriter.
Was she drunk?
I have no idea. Someone was worried if she had something wrong with her. I think she just choked. Listen, athletes choke all the time. You get to the free throw line, it's a tie game, you miss some free throws, you overthrow a pass, you hit a ball out of bounds. If you're a tennis player, radio guys choke. I have a big segment coming up, a big interview. You're tripping all over your words. We all do that, no matter.
Picturing Eminem,
come
one
on.
shot, one opportunity, knees weak, arms are heavy. There's vomit on her sweater already. I guess you could describe it from last night. That was tough. And I guess it set the tone for the home run derby. Because I'm going to remember nothing from the home run derby.
I don't know. Yeah.
I
mean,
feel like it went for 5 hours.
It always does. Other than Bobby Witt almost won, which means I could have, walked into this room, strutted
Tickle
into
bragging,
the room,
right.
and said, hey, I picked Bobby Witt to win the home run contest. So what do you want to do? Because I did cut 3 clips of her, just a couple of them. Now the thing is, it started
Do we
out.
really need to hear it again?
It started out shaky, and I thought she saved it. And then there's a couple parts of our, beautiful national anthem that are not easy to sing. You got to pick. Are you going to go high on the tone on a couple places? And unfortunately, she tried to.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I didn't hear any of the saving attempts. And then the land of the free, boy, that was quite the cherry on top.
Oh, goodness.
Teoscar Hernandez,
Congratulations.
your winner of the home run derby last night. Good Tuesday morning to you.
See? Not bad.
We do not need to listen to it.
Savable.
Hold on. Now it's
Savable.
Good news, we do have an Olympian joining us here in about a half hour.
Should we open with that?
wanna play that?
Probably
Play
not.
that?
It's Ally Wilson, quite the story, the 800-meter participant coming up in the Paris game. She's calling us from London.
Yeah.
So 5 hours ahead of us. She's over there training. Former broad rippled nanny turned Olympian. Don't think we have many of those headlines before. So we'll chat with her coming up at 7:40. Like we said, it is, again, an ugly start to this Tuesday here. Not only in Circle City, but sounds like some power outages certainly here. Thought I saw the number around 5,000 people in Indy dealing with that. But certainly the northwest part of the state, the northern part of the state, up into Chicago, much more severe from a not only storm damage standpoint, but some power outages. So for some reason you got family, friends, or you're traveling in that part of the state or even Illinois today, certainly keep an eye out on that. Again, Ally Wilson, 7:40. We'll get to the Purdue side of the TBT tournament. Sasha Stefanovic joining us at 9. Last week we talked with Christian Watford. Again, the alumni teams for Indiana, Purdue, and Butler all competing over at Hinkle coming up this weekend. So Sasha Stefanovic, who is on Purdue's coaching staff, he is a part of Matt Painter's staff. He will hop on the show at 9. And then Tony East to talk a little Pacers Summer League as they get back into action today. Game number 3 that is on ESPNU coming up at 4 o'clock.
Do we have any idea who's playing today? I haven't seen anything. Like, I assume Jarris Walker is playing. Is Ben Shepherd still playing?
Yeah.
He's been, not very good, but we know he's part of the rotation for the Pacers this season.
My hope is that they play.
Yeah, I do too. I agree.
I don't need to see Lance Jones getting extended minutes for the Pacers Summer League here in the back half.
Hey, settle down. Pick on somebody else other than Lance Jones. Come on.
So, yes, I would like to see them continue to play. But to your point, Andy, oftentimes teams do this where they're good guys, they're more qualified guys, they're more accomplished guys, however you want to describe it. They leave Vegas, which honestly, leaving Vegas early doesn't sound like the craziest thing in the world. Still no Zach Edey. Last night, Memphis played another Summer League game. He has yet to play since turning that ankle. It sounds like Memphis still wants to play him at some point here in Vegas. He will have 2 more opportunities to play, but still no Zach Edey from that turned ankle last week.
Okay, so 2 things with Zach Edey. Number one, and I know it's precaution, but like you said, they still want to play him. I mean, this is a guy that we didn't talk about injuries for a couple years at Purdue at all, right? I mean, it wasn't like wasn't like he had a bunch of game time decisions or was missing practice on a consistent basis. Some guys need a lot of maintenance. I never felt that way, even though he's such a large human being with Zach Edey. And then, I do wonder, I know he said all the right things, but I do wonder if he wishes he would have played with Team Canada and been an Olympian. I know he's going to have other chances, at least 2 or 3 other chances probably in his career to do so. But the reasoning he gave was he wanted to play in the Summer League. He wanted to show people, hey, I'm worthy of being that top 10 pick in the NBA draft. And lo and behold, he played good in that first game a week and a half ago. But that's it, KB. I mean, with the sprained ankle, he hasn't played now. What's that, 3 straight games?
Yeah,
he hasn't paid?
Yeah, disappointing on that. And again, doesn't sound like anything super severe by any means. We'll see. Wednesday and Thursday, next games for Memphis. You catch any Team USA yesterday?
I did, yeah, and I wanted to talk about that here off the top. I know Halliburton had a couple late threes that actually were big. Man, what do we do? What do we do? What do you think? I don't know. I mean, they you're up 20 on Australia, and I'm watching the TV broadcast, and Benetti, who's very good, is like, hey, this is, it's mid-third quarter or whatever. He's like, hey, this is getting away a little bit. Actually, it was at the 7:13 mark of the third quarter. Benetti says, hey, this is starting to get away from Australia, and I swear, when those words left his mouth, KB, Team USA did nothing but turn the basketball over and over again. And it was everybody. I mean, it's LeBron, it's Steph Curry, it's Joel Embiid. I mean, it's the big players. It's not the backup guys. At one point, Australia goes on a 14-2 run. Even with 9 minutes to go, you're up by 18. And that just became a close game. It got down to at least, 4 or at least 6 at the very end with your boy Josh Giddey, Mark, hitting a couple shots. But I don't know. I thought their ball handling and turnovers and attention to detail was kind of crap, to be honest, and I thought their defense was kind of average. I don't know. I mean, doesn't mean we won't win gold, but I don't know. I mean, the first game was ho-hum. I think everyone's like, it's fine. But what we saw yesterday was not a good performance from Team USA.
Just not good in the final 5-6 minutes, or not good throughout. I mean, they did build a 20-point lead, and then I guess foot comes off the gas.
Yeah. So which one bothers you? If it was a 6-point game, or if you're giving up a 20-point game?
Bigger issues if you're sitting there at halftime and the game's like tied. I mean, I thought there was zero level of stress, frankly, for the whole game. But I guess if you want to make something of it, I thought maybe late fourth quarter, they were sloppy finish. And for how good that second unit's been, that was the unit that kind of let Australia get back into it there late. But I mean, they shot a great early. They built a big lead.
I'm not overreacting, but it's more than 30 turnovers in 2 games. And Australia's not, to me, that's not one of the top teams.
I'm certainly interested to see how Steve Kerr continues to operate with the starting lineup. He pretty much has gone 5-man units through these first 2 games. Yesterday, he made a switch to the starting unit. It was Jason Tatum and Anthony Edwards starting. Devin Booker and Drew Holiday to the bench. We still have yet to see Kevin Durant with that calf injury. You would think that will be another starting lineup change whenever Durant gets fully healthy there. Halliburton and that group, individually, I thought Tyrese was really just like a ball mover. I mean, he had very little like statistical impact on the game when he was in there. And then sure enough, late, when Anthony Edwards, who was outstanding early, when he went a little hero ball late
he was
and
terrible
it wasn't
late.
as effective, they needed somebody to kind of close it shut. And that's what Halliburton did. And I do think moments like that for Tyrese, I think are just very important in further earning Steve Kerr's trust. I think he already has a ton of Steve Kerr's trust. I don't want to act like he doesn't. But, when you start to get into the group play and certainly the one-and-done format, Steve Kerr's not going to operate with all 12 guys playing.
Right.
So, when you shorten that group a bit, who you put out there, especially late games, I think is going to be super interesting. And I think moments like yesterday for Tyrese, even though he didn't, stuff the stat sheet, I think that's critical for them. So, I'm not going to overreact too much. Again, Australia is not one of the best couple teams, but this is a Team USA team that was up, 15-16 when that second unit went in there with like 6 or 7 minutes to go. And then that's when Australia kind of made their run.
What about your boy Jock Landell? If you didn't see it, he's the Australian that balled out on us, 27-6.
He's a St. Mary's product?
Jock Landell. Yeah, how about that? Now, he had his moment in the sun.
Was he on the St. Mary's team that ran IU over in the tournament a few years ago?
Let's just say yes. I contend that IU St. Mary's game was the least watched game of the tournament in the last 10 years.
Well,
it was on like True TV at like 10 o'clock at night, and it was a 20-point game. Wasn't it a double-digit game basically the entire way?
I think for
if I'm not mistaken.
IU fans, they would certainly appreciate that. Next up for Team USA, they will take on Serbia. Nikola Jokic and company. That is tomorrow at noon. I did think Anthony Davis was really good yesterday. I don't know what they should do with Joel Embiid. Like, I think you can make a case watching them right now. Embiid shouldn't play that much.
You think they should play Anthony Davis more? Or I want them to go small occasionally, to be quite honest.
Right, and I guess Davis would be kind of that. I don't know if, Bam Adebayo, I don't know. I do think Bam could help you at some points in the tournament, but, with Embiid, it just looks a tad clunky when he's out there. There's, like, not a whole lot of flow. I don't really know how to explain it. It seems like a team that is so versatile and has the ability to switch everything, and then you get Embiid out there, and it's like, wait, what do you do with him? Obviously he's super talented, super skilled, but, is the international game the best suited for him? We haven't really seen him, play major roles internationally in his career, so I think that's another thing to keep an eye on. But one more game in Abu Dhabi for Team USA against Serbia tomorrow at noon before they shift things to London, and that will be their final couple tune-ups before the Olympics starting up here in a little over a week.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm not going to overreact to it. I just wasn't in love, with I just wasn't. I understand they're trying different lineups and different starting lineups and everything else. I don't know. I mean, you just don't need to turn the ball over that much. I guess that's my thing. Things that could leak into the actual tournament that I look at, it's not even giving up the lead, although that's one thing. I mean, you felt a little bit of game pressure. To me, it's just not taking care of the basketball. And some of the older guys, I mean, Steph Curry stunk yesterday. Steph Curry was terrible. I mean, Curry was he was terrible, turning the ball over, missing wide open shots. And again, he's not going to do that. You mentioned Joel Embiid. I mean, I did love, God bless him, LeBron. LeBron's twice the size of a lot of these guys. He goes to the bucket and misses multiple layups, is begging for a foul from some small little Australian guy. So, why don't you finish through contact? I don't know. I guess I hold Team USA to a very high standard. And, I mean, come on, us growing up, we're like, hey, go win every one of these games by 35 points. And that's just not that's not the reality anymore. Winning by 15 is, in today's day and age, winning by 35. Now, I did not see this story quickly. You mentioned Kevin Durant still being hobbled as we get closer and closer to the Olympics. I did not hear it until this morning. Lawrence Frank clapped back at Grant Hill. Grant Hill running Team USA right now. About Team USA putting out a couple days ago the release, KB, that Kawhi Leonard, he left, and that was a joint decision between Team USA and Clipper personnel. And Lawrence Frank of the Clippers, who I believe is the president of basketball operations, flat out yesterday clapped back and said that is 100% not true. That Kawhi wanted to play, that the Clippers wanted Kawhi to play, that, they had done things to get him ready to play, that he had worked to get ready to play. And so, Lawrence Frank made it sound like he and Kawhi weren't too happy that Leonard got shown the door a couple days ago and Derek White got put in. So, just something worth watching.
When I read the Team USA press release and listened to Grant Hill discuss it, I got the impression of they looked out there and watched Kawhi Leonard and thought, you're not at the level that we need you. I mean, like rust, 80%, 90%, however you want to describe it.
He was injured at the end of the season.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I when I saw mutual, I'm like, well, that's nice to put on a piece of paper. Your comments are leading me to think it's not mutual.
Yeah.
Like, you basically just said, hey, we brought you in. You didn't look as healthy as we thought you were, and we're going to send you home. So, Derek White did not play yesterday for Team USA, but obviously at some point you'd expect him to get into the fold. We'll certainly get to our Colts indispensable number 4 on that list. We started that off yesterday, again, ranking the top 5 most indispensable Colts here for the 2024 season.
Who did you have yesterday again? I can't remember already.
I went with Kenny Moore.
Kenny Moore yesterday. Okay.
You had Michael Pittman Jr.
Yes,
at
sir.
number 5, so we'll give number 4 today. Another Colts item to hit on. Again, we are 8 days away from reporting to Grand Park. This would certainly be a day where we'd be heading indoors there at Grand Park for practice. You see these lists a lot during the summer. You see the, hey, let's poll the anonymous executives from around the league and offer their comments.
Yep.
They labeled one very popular and very accolade-filled Colt as overrated.
Love it.
Was what an AFC executive said.
Love it.
How overrated is said player? We'll share that coming up here in a bit as well.
Yeah, and we have a top 10 list as it pertains to top quarterbacks in the NFL. Again, Jeremy Fowler doing all of this. And I do wonder, just as a conversation piece, I think, there's a chance, Anthony Richardson is hunting, you hope, some of these lists, right? When you talk about all these preseason lists, or I know, the NFL Network in the offseason, if the NFL Network is still going to be around, they do the top 100 players in the NFL. I'm interested, if I'm a Colts fan today, I want Anthony Richardson to have the type of season to where we're talking about him, where he is on these sorts of lists. And if he's not on a top 10, 15 list, whatever it may be, that we can sit here on sports radio and be upset about that, right? I mean, that is the hope after the end of the season, that's what we're talking about with Anthony Richardson, because that's what happened last year with C.J. Stroud.
Again, 8 days away from the Colts starting their training camp, so we'll certainly continue to hit on a few Colts items here on a very, very rainy and flooded Tuesday morning.
Can we give you one more? Can me and Mark Dighton give you one more, Ingrid, before we go to break here? Do you just want to hear
Land
the end?
Of the free,
you just
I thought was the worst
You just want to hear
part.
the land of the free? Go ahead.
For the land of the free.
Ooh.
I mean, where is
Oh man,
where
God
is Mo
bless her.
Cheeks to put his arm around her when you
Where is
need
Mo
it?
Cheeks?
I thought for a moment there, should the in-stadium operations staff maybe go with a turnoff of a mic? Just kind of let the crowd carry that,
Right.
technical difficulties
Sure.
here.
Sure.
You can easily fib your way through that.
Oh, you got 40, 50,000 people
And
in
they
attendance.
were trying to aid her
Yeah.
at times there, but
Who is it? Is it? Oh goodness, I'm trying to think. Who's the Philadelphia Philly that was trying his best not to laugh during the entire thing?
was that Alec?
Yeah, because who sang the national anthem at the NBA All-Star game that year? Was that the Fergie year? Because Fergie had a terrible
I feel like
year.
the Mo Cheeks one was an actual Trailblazers game, and I mean he.
Oh no, that was
I mean he was
head
unbelievable,
coach.
so gracious. And,
It was a young girl. She was like 8
very
years old.
iconic moment. I thought when I saw it last night, like she had won a fan event, like they had somehow done a fan poll. I had no idea who Ingrid was.
People taking shots at country music. Oh, of course, anybody. Of course, she's a country music star. Of course. So, anyway, poor Ingrid last night. All right, let's take a break. Your scores from last night and some sound. Your morning check down. We'll get to it next on this rainy Tuesday. Wake up call. Appreciate you hanging out with us for the next 3 hours. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
A few months ago, Ally Wilson was a broad ripple nanny, and then she qualified for the Olympics. She's going to join us here coming up in about 15 minutes live from London. She'll be in the 800 meters in Paris here in a few weeks, so looking forward to that conversation. Before that, let's go ahead and do a morning check down.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, no scores, not a lot of scores, I should say, coming from last night and yesterday. But let's start Home Run Derby. We've talked about the riveting national anthem more than who actually won. Teoscar Hernandez, your winner for the 2024 MLB Home Run Derby. Now, he had 14 home runs. He went first in the final round. Bobby Witt Jr., my guy, who I picked, Kansas City Royals shortstop, he had 13, okay? So it's 14-13. Witt's down to his, final out. He's got to hit a home run. Here's how it sounded on ESPN radio. Witt came just short, hitting it off the bottom of the wall.
Here.
Oh, he swung. Gotta go. Get legs. Get legs. Oh, no.
Teoscar Hernandez is your 2024 T-Mobile Home Run Derby champ. It was up there forever and came up just short.
Yeah, so that's how it ended last night. Again, Hernandez had 14 home runs. Witt had 13. Witt gave it a ride. It was a high fly ball. Did stay up there. You heard the call for several seconds. Came down, hit the bottom of the wall. That ended it. And Hernandez really wanted to win. He said before, hey, I want to be in this. I want to win this. So good for him. Teoscar Hernandez and the Dodgers have another great player. So there you go.
Dodger ever to win the Home Run Derby, which I was surprised to see that. Again, Paul Skeens on the mound tonight for the All-Star game from Dallas, so that'll be your appointment television on this Tuesday evening. All right, yesterday, Team USA, they hold on and defeat Australia. Big lead really throughout, and then certainly let it dwindle there late. Tyrese Halliburton hadn't scored in the game until the final couple minutes, and with Team USA needing to stop the bleeding, it was Halliburton hitting a wide-open three in front of their bench, and then I think on the very next possession.
It was.
Was it the very next one?
I think it was the very next possession, yeah.
Hit one in the face of Josh Giddey, and that was what Team USA needed to just officially kind of slam the door shut on that exhibition win yesterday. So, again, Halliburton's group in general played well in the first half. He didn't really do much statistically early on, but did hit those couple threes there late, so continues to run that second unit. Next up for Team USA, which received nice contributions from Anthony Davis. Anthony Edwards, very good early, not good late. Will be Serbia, who many believe can win a medal with Nikola Jokic and company. They'll also be in Team USA's group here coming up in Paris. That will also be a noon tip time coming up tomorrow, their final exhibition game from Abu Dhabi.
All right, now we need to discuss at some point, what do we want to see today? 4 o'clock, I believe. It's Pacers and Suns in Summer League. Pacers 0-2, Suns 0-1. KB, someone's got to win today.
Boo-booey for the Suns, right?
Someone has to win today. Somebody, please. Also, last night, Bronny James played 25 minutes, scored 2 points, 1 of 5 from the field.
Former Pacer legend Isaiah Wong on the Phoenix Suns.
Oh, is he
Summer
really?
League
Okay.
team. So, yes, 4 o'clock ESPNU today. Still no Zach Edey in Summer League. It sounds like Memphis would like to play him at some point, but they just have a couple of games left here Wednesday and Thursday.
Do you know who's starting for the American League tonight for the All-Star game, by the way? I know we discussed that yesterday. Do you guys know who it is?
I meant to look that
It has
up.
been announced.
Who is it?
I really don't know.
Corbin Burns of the
Okay.
Baltimore Orioles.
Now, I was looking at who Skeens would face tonight in the lineup there. Stephen Kwan, Gunner from last night. Gunner really struggled for me there.
Yeah, he didn't do well.
Juan Soto. And then if somebody gets on base, Aaron Judge.
Aaron Judge, yeah. So
Part of
good
me
luck.
is like, could we have made Aaron Judge one of the first 3 hitters?
Well, you're supposed to. Yeah, cleanup doesn't mean what it's supposed to mean. I thought they would go Soto 2, Judge 3, to be quite honest.
That's what I was kind of hoping for, to get the Skeens-Judge matchup, because, Skeens obviously goes 1, 2, 3. I can't imagine he's going to run out there for the second. For what it's worth, Skeens is pitching on like a relatively normal rest. We haven't seen him since late last week, so again, he will get the start there.
So what are you rooting for though? Him to go, immaculate inning, or him to get teed off on in the first inning or two?
I just want Judge to get up to bat.
Okay. So you don't care as long as that happens.
Yeah.
Okay.
How about an
Fair
infield
enough.
error, like a bloop single or something like that?
Drop third strike.
Yeah.
In the All-Star game. Only other item of note for me, we can get more into this. Purdue continues to beef up
Love
their
it.
non-conference schedule.
I want to talk about this later on.
They've added Auburn. Now, this will be neutral site games, and I say plural, in the home states of these respective teams. So for Auburn, it'll be in Birmingham coming up in December of this year. So Bruce Pearl, Matt Painter, a neutral site game. Obviously, we saw Indiana play Auburn last year, neutral site. That was in Atlanta. And then Auburn will return the favor next year with that Indiana Classic game. I forget what the Indy Classic, I think, is what they've labeled it as, over at Cambridge Fieldhouse. So, again, we've seen Purdue since the Crossroads Classic ended. They've played Davidson. They've played Arizona. This year it'll be Texas A&M. Next year it'll be Auburn in that neutral site game over at Cambridge Fieldhouse there. So Purdue's non-conference schedule looking a lot different than the non-conference schedule down in Bloomington here this offseason. And also on a Purdue note, certainly a legend here on airwaves and on the football field as well. Mark Herman going to be back in the booth for them, doing some color for their football games this season alongside Tim Newton, the great Pete Quinn, hanging it up after 32 years.
I mean, I do love, listen, there might be reasons, but we can dive into this later on. It's just, Matt Painter gets it. I mean, Matt Painter is going to have a much different team. Obviously, he loses a guy like Zach Edey, and, he doesn't have a weak non-conference schedule. He comes out strong. He continues to add to the non-conference schedule. The Big Ten, obviously, still a respectable conference. And then, on top of it, he gives you a game in Indianapolis, and it's consistently, seemingly doing so. And Indiana has the trip to the Bahamas. So congratulations. You'll get West Virginia there.
We might have to push Ally Wilson back a little bit to 8 o'clock. She informed me that nothing says London like I'm currently on a train right now, and I don't know if the service will be too great on that end. I can't say we've ever had people. Have we ever had a guest?
On a train?
Well, I'm trying to think if we ever had an actual guest call in from Europe.
Yes, we had one of the NFL broadcasters when they were out there. What were they doing?
Oh, goodness.
It was the Germany game.
No, it was a Germany game. What was her name? It was a female.
Yeah.
Not
help
Bjorn
me here.
Werner.
No, it wasn't him.
I'm blanking
my
also.
goodness. I'm blanking on her name, too.
She works for
Remember we
NFL
had,
Network.
She was very good.
We had like a fan call in who had been to the game.
Yeah.
Over there in
Then our guy Derek.
Stacey Dale.
Stacey
That's who it
Dale.
was.
Stacey Dale.
That's
Okay.
it.
So
yeah,
maybe
she called in.
So that was from Germany. Maybe this is our first London.
Well, what if we have her on the
Yes.
phone and we're like, hey, we're going to tell you things to say on the train? Manchester United sucks. Just go ahead and scream that out on the train.
I think we are trying to make sure America is looked at fondly around the world. and
okay.
I don't think that's going to
We're
enhance us.
We're gonna do our part in that. Yeah.
I'm sure Allie would love that. Nothing says good karma leading into the
I
Olympics.
feel like I'm fighting uphill
Like
on
that.
that one. So we'll get Ally Wilson coming up in the 8 o'clock. I do want to dive back into that Purdue discussion. I like what Matt Painter did. Plus, we need to talk about at some point today. I was going to mention if we had time here. There's a growing thought that Devontae Adams is going to be moved to Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets. Boomer Esiason is basically reporting that there is such heavy interest that at this point he thinks it's going to happen. Devontae Adams. So
is Boomer Esiason an insider?
he is now. He's on the air a bunch, so we'll use him. So we'll see. There's scuttle that may happen. So we'll see what happens there. We'll catch up with Ally Wilson again. It's going to be a fun show today. Tony East going to join us. Sasha Stefanovic in the 9 o'clock hour as well. We'll take a break. We'll keep it going right here. Wake up call to Tuesday, rainy Tuesday, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
It is a rainy, rainy Tuesday morning here in Indy. Unfortunately, sounds like some folks dealing with power outages from late night storms, certainly the northern part of the state up into Chicago. So certainly thinking about those people. And if that is part of your morning commute, keep an eye out on that here on this Tuesday morning. Olympian Ally Wilson live from London. She was a broad ripple nanny earlier this year, training here for the 800 meters. She is going to join us coming up at the top of the hour. We'll get to the old overrated label on one marquee Colts player that has come out here in recent days in just a second. But I did want to double back, since we mentioned it there in the morning checkdown, Andy, on the news yesterday from Purdue, again, that they have added Auburn to their non-conference schedule here for this coming season. So, again, for those that missed the news, this is going to be a neutral site game down in Birmingham in December. Obviously, I say neutral site with quotes around that. The return game will be next year. That's the Indy Classic game that Purdue now has played in annually over at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. So that will be a bit of a home and home, or I should say like a neutral, but again, those in quotes. So right now, you're looking at Purdue's non-conference schedule. Auburn, Texas A&M, which will be at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, Alabama, Marquette, and then they are also in a tournament out in San Diego with BYU, Ole Miss, and Arkansas. So that dots the Purdue non-conference schedule. And, by all accounts, they're not really making it too cakewalky with a very new-looking style team. I know they're going to bring back a lot of the similar faces, but obviously playing style-wise, they're going to be a whole lot different than they were last year with Zach Edey.
Yeah, well, I thank Matt Painter for doing this. I'm not surprised by it. He continues to add games and continues, hey, he loses Zach Edey and he goes out in schedule. There's no reason in college basketball that if you think you're going to have an NCAA tournament team, and this year, they might be closer to a 4 or 5 seed than they have been, a 1 seed in the past. I could be wrong. We'll see. Replacing Zach Edey is not going to be easy. You lose a guy like Mason Gills. Who else do they lose on that team? You just lose, guys that are really, really good players or starters. Ethan Morton on that team as well.
I was joking.
Leave my man Ethan. Where'd he go?
Colorado
State, yeah, okay, that sounds right. Matt Painter does it. Listen, Matt Painter, I'm not saying he does it the right way. I would not build my team the way he builds his team. I would go get higher rated kids and I would play it that way, but he does it his way. But in scheduling, I give him all the credit in the world. There's no reason to have a weak ass schedule in college basketball. If you lose a neutral floor game to a team like Auburn, to a top 25 team, a team atop of a big conference like the SEC, it's not going to penalize you. In fact, if you win that game, it's going to help you and it's going to be a huge resume win. I know there's some teams, and this is not even totally an Indiana thing, that think they can. I talked about this Friday. Did we think that Mike Woodson was trying to do the Big 12 thing, not the Kansas thing, but the Big 12 thing, and that's win a bunch of games against bad competition by a lot, which make your net rankings and net metrics look really good before you go to conference play? I don't think that's the case. I just think some coaches, they see a young team or they see a new team and they decide instead of challenging themselves, they're going to play a bunch of weak opponents, and that's the way they're going to play it. That's fine. You better be good when you get to like Indiana in the Big Ten. But I give Matt Painter credit. That's who he is, and he's going to keep going, and that should be a fun game. He gives us a game in Indianapolis and then going to give us a game in Birmingham, 6 hours down the road. Good for him.
So there will be no game at Gainbridge Fieldhouse here in the regular season for IU this season. We have seen them do I think it was Miami of Ohio maybe one year, Harvard another year. They've played that game still in Indy without the Crossroads Classic. We will not see that this season from Mike Woodson's bunch. I gave Woodson credit in recent years. I liked the home and home with Kansas. I liked playing Arizona on a neutral floor. Even, I know it wasn't directly part of how the bracket worked out, but the fact that you got, UConn, back in December, Auburn in Atlanta, those sorts of games, I think that's important to have on your schedule. And, if you look at Indiana here in recent years, among the issues has been they have been ran off the floor by quality non-conference teams away from home in particular. If you look at Auburn and Atlanta last year, you look at UConn and Madison Square Garden or Barclays Center, I kind of forget where that game was. You look at Kansas and Lawrence. You go back to Arizona and Vegas. Hell, you go back to the tournament, Miami in the second round of the tournament. When you have faced, these non-conference teams who you would define in some levels quality. Obviously, UConn ranks atop the list, but even those other teams, Auburn, Miami, Kansas, Arizona, etc., they have, again, run IU off the floor. And to get away from that, I just don't think that makes you better. Running from that competition, I don't think aids you in that area. So I don't know if it is the Big 12 approach. I don't know if it's simply we just need to get wins because I'm on the hot seat, and whether you want to publicly admit that or not, is that at play here? Because the battle for Atlantis, which Indiana's in this year, it's not the same dominant, great depth 1-8
it's
that
not.
we're used to seeing. It's really two very good teams, however you want to define IU, and then a lot of teams that I think are going to kind of be battling for tournament spots. So, yes, I would opt for Purdue's schedule in this case, even though I do feel like, in a way, Indiana and Purdue are kind of in similar boats with what they bring back, what they're involving. I know IU has got more new faces, but I really think Purdue is going to be playing so differently, and they might still bring back 6 of their top, 8, if you want to take out Gillis and take out Edey. But still, how Purdue was either game planned against or how they game planned
it's totally
for,
different, yeah.
It is much different with the makeup of their roster without Edey here. So, again, Purdue is now turned into a schedule where it's pretty notable, whereas Indiana has much more opted for the less marquee games, which creates more pressure when you do have a few of those games. But from a fan base standpoint, the games at Assembly Hall, the games at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, you're not going to be sitting there texting your buddy saying, I can't wait for tonight, because there's not a lot of marquee there.
Well, I mean, listen, even when the transfer market, I know some of the guys are sophomores. Indiana's not a young team by any stretch of imagination. They're just not. I mean, you may say they're inexperienced playing together, but
they're new, yeah.
They're new, but I mean, that's college basketball. I don't know what to tell you. If we're going to do well, you're going to have a new roster, because you can't schedule this, that, or the other, then you're never going to schedule that, because that's always quite literally the way college basketball is going to be. The Indiana fan may not care. They may say, "Well, give me some wins." The flip side, I talked about this on Friday a little bit, KB, is this past year they were sneaking by bad teams, specifically even bad teams at home was Indiana. And that does not help your net ranking or any of your metrics that the committee would look at by beating bad teams by just a few points. The whole point is, if you're going to do that, you got to beat these teams by a lot. You got to beat them by definitely double digits, but you need to beat them by 20, 30 points. I know that seems silly, but you need to pound these teams, game control. You need to take them out. And so that's what I'll be looking for with Indiana basketball this year. Purdue's going to have losses. The way they have scheduled, they're going to go into the Big Ten, not with the same schedule or the record, I should say, that they did the last couple years. But for IU, you got to now you got to beat Army now. Instead of by 3, you got to beat them by 23. That's what you have to do if this is the way you're going to schedule, knowing that you're going to take losses in the Big Ten.
In a bit, we'll get to our Colts indispensable list, number 4 on that list here in a few. Yesterday, I saw this story come out, and it's kind of a popular summer annual series. I think a lot of these websites do. They pull the anonymous executives, they rank players around the league, et cetera, et cetera. One Colt got an overrated label. Now, this is from ESPN. They rank the top interior offensive linemen in the NFL. Quentin Nelson came in 3rd on that list. Now, in the article, there's one AFC scout that offered this about Nelson. Again, anonymous AFC scout. I thought he was stellar. Maybe his best season was how that scout labeled Nelson. Now, another AFC executive chimed in and said this. I think Nelson has always been a little overrated.
Ooh.
His highs are very high, and he can set a tone and dominate at times. I think he has slipped this past year, though. One more, again, league exec chimed in and said, Nelson is playing top-heavy and doesn't bend as well anymore. So
sounds like me.
Well, he certainly sounds like me, as I've been known to stretch during the breaks here. in this studio.
So what do you think? I mean, a couple calling him overrated, but in the end, he's third on their list, which is pretty good. I mean, that's a Pro Bowler.
This gets into the finances of Quentin Nelson. This gets into a little bit more of positional value, which I've always harped on is probably my biggest disagreement with Chris Ballard. To me, you just don't draft a guard at 6 overall. If you look at like the Super Bowl, like San Francisco's Super Bowl guards from last year, all right, neither of them ranked in the top 30 in the NFL in money at that position. And if you look at like the payouts at guard right now, Andy, Nelson, his cap hit $25 million. I think it's the second highest.
Yeah, let me look that up, but that's a big cap hit
of any guard. And if you just all of a sudden, instead of Nelson as your second highest cap hit at guard, if you went down to like the 5th or the 6th, so you're still getting, an upper level left guard to fit your offensive line group, you're saving your team, double-digit millions in going from the $25 million cap hit of Nelson down to whatever, 13 or 14 million on that list. And that's where the question I would have. I think Quentin Nelson has proven to be an extremely good football player. Certainly one on the pathway to Canton, Ohio. But when you're going to be tight on finances anyways, and all of a sudden you've invested all of this at guard, and it's gotten you here, 6 or 7 years into the NFL career, that's where I struggled to even go back to that 2018 draft and say, no, drafting a guard at 6 overall is worth it. Because if you take Nelson money and you put that more to a position of true value, in my opinion, whether that be, honestly, tackle, I think would fall into that category, but whether that be pass rusher or corner or wideout, I think you'd feel the impact much more than you felt Nelson's impact through this. So, the overrated label I don't think is fair, but to say like you've gotten the return on investment, I mean, have you? Or like
it's hard.
Are you putting your money in the best position possible? I guess that was probably the better way to view it, and I think the answer to that is no, which is much more of a philosophical question or answer in regards to how Chris Ballard views money and views positions. We've heard him say it. We heard him say it a year ago. Right now, in regards to paying Jonathan Taylor, no matter the position, you pay good players. And while I can listen to some of that, I don't think that's the best mode of operations in trying to build a consistent championship type of roster.
Well, the best thing about this is now we all get to guess who the AFC knucklehead that thinks he's overrated a little bit. How about that? Now we have to. I contend it's not someone in the AFC South. It's someone who maybe hasn't seen Quentin Nelson play maybe as much. I would say it's someone that the Colts didn't even play last year. That would be my guess.
It is wild when you look at the money at guard specifically and you see how much Nelson, for example, is making. And then again, Andy, you don't go very far down the list to like whatever, 5th or 6th, and you see how big of a drop-off it is in the money. Like if you look at wideout right now, wideout is very smushed together. It's not a huge separation in individual years for guys, whereas you look at guard, it's a huge drop from the tier 1s to the tier 2s and 3s. And what I would ask is, are you feeling that? If you have a tier 1 quarterback and the money indicates that he is that much better of a player than the tier 2 quarterback, you're going to feel that week in and week out. Like Patrick Mahomes creates that for the Kansas City Chiefs, but like I don't feel that with left guard in the NFL, frankly. And again, I don't think it's necessarily a slap in the face of Nelson. I think he's been a very, very good player in regards to his position. But what's the return on investment there? Because to me, I don't think you have a lot to show for it.
Yeah, like there's two numbers. Like Quentin Nelson, if you looked at left guard, he's the second compared to Landon Dickerson, who just got a deal recently from the Philadelphia Eagles. So Nelson's total guarantee is $60 million. His fully guaranteed on his last contract was $41. To go what you said, if you go about 6-7 spots down to where you're getting a guy that's still a top 10 left guard, their guaranteed money is closer to 14 to 17 to 18 million instead of closer to 40 to 60 million.
And my question would be, compare those two teams, compare those two players. Are you really feeling that difference? Because frankly, any team in the NFL, that's a significant amount of money from a different standpoint. For the Colts, it's even more with how tight they typically are in spending that money elsewhere. So in an ideal world, you would not be investing. Now, I've played this game before. Name me the starting guards on the Colts Super Bowl team. I mean, it's, yes, the diehard fans out there are screaming whatever,
Right.
Ryan Lilja,
Right, but the majority
Jake
of people.
Scott into their radio.
Right.
But obviously, where was your money allocated on those teams? It was in Peyton. It was in Marvin. It was
Yep.
in Tartt Glenn. It was in the pass rushers, et cetera, on that. That is where I would disagree with Chris Ballard.
All right, is Ally Wilson, have you got any more texts? Is she off the train in London?
Sounds like she is. She's good to go.
She's ready to go. All right, so we'll still do our Colts question of the day. Reminder, Sasha Stavanovich going to join us in the 9 o'clock hour as well. But coming up next, Olympian Ally Wilson. She'll join us. We'll do that 8 o'clock hour around the corner on this rainy Tuesday. Wake up call 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Was a show. I think we're checking off another box here on this Tuesday morning. If I have this right, our next guest, fresh off of a train in London. I don't believe we've ever had a guest, certainly an Olympic guest, call us here from England in our show's history. Ally Wilson in the 800 meters coming up here in a few weeks in Paris, and she's got some local ties. She joins us right now. Ally, do I have this right? You are fresh off a train in London?
You have this right. Yes. Sorry, I'm literally all over the place.
All good. Are we en route to training? What does our Tuesday schedule look like for you?
Yeah. So I was staying in England I flew into Europe from the trials. Pretty much, I stopped home in Philly to see my family for a couple of days, but then I came straight here. I had a race in Dublin this past weekend, and then I'm just training in London until Paris. Actually, I do have another race this weekend in London, but yeah, I've just been kind of hotel hopping. So we're on our way to our next destination, closer to kind of where I'll need to be this weekend.
Ally Wilson joining us here on the Payless Liquors hotline. Ally, during the break, when you qualified for the Olympics, I went back and I watched that race during the break. And can you tell people need to know there was about 30 seconds in, there was a wreck. I mean, basically, where you could have fallen and other racers as well. You were fourth. And then you made a nice kick at the very end to get up to second and to qualify. That race itself, how crazy was that race? And then just in general, how crazy has, maybe the last month and a half been in your life?
Yeah, I mean, that race was probably one of the craziest ones I've ever been in. And especially when there's very high stakes, it's like a little bit stressful. But, I mean, being an 800-meter runner, it can get pretty dicey out there. We're all, obviously running very fast. It's the first event where you don't stay in your own lane. So it can just kind of cause problems when we all are coming out of our own lanes into a pack together. Things do happen, unfortunately. But, when all of that happened, I had no choice but to really just keep running my race and keep doing what I had to do. And then I was happy I was able to close it off in the end and come in second on that day because I had to come in top 3 to make this team. So I was pretty proud.
I think I had an audible, oh my gosh, when all of a sudden all of them group together and then people start to fall. I'm like, oh boy, I hope this works out well for Ally. It clearly did, as she is now off to the Olympics, calling us live here from London. Ally, I know there's some of our audience that did hear a little bit about your story. I think David Woods wrote a great article for The Star in describing your local ties. For those that missed that, can you explain what brought you to Indianapolis to do some of your U.S. trial training here earlier in 2024?
Yeah, so out of college, I was training for a team in Atlanta for about 4 years. And then last year, my coach decided to leave, and he is from Indiana. Him and his wife are both from there, Andrew and Amy Begley, Amy Yoder when she was in Indiana. And he we all knew last year that they would be moving, and we didn't know where, but he chose Indianapolis, and obviously kind of because they have ties to there. And so I really had nothing, there was no part of me that wasn't, knew I wasn't going to go with him. I had to go with him. It was such an important time and such an important year. I couldn't risk a change of coaching right now when it was happening. So I chose to go with him, and I've been in Indianapolis since November. So I feel like I just moved there, but I guess it was kind of a while ago at this point. And yeah, it's been great to me so far. And it was what was right for myself and my training and making all of my dreams come true. So I'm happy that it paid off.
And I want to make sure I have this right. But by doing that, there were some sponsorship issues that went into play here. Could you explain a little bit of that? And from the sound of it, and again, I know nothing, but from the sound of it,
yeah,
you really bet on yourself by doing this.
Yeah, so I had really worked up my contract in Atlanta to be something that I felt like I had earned, and it was I felt very comfortable in my living situation. And then it is really hard in track and field to get an individual sponsorship. So I knew by walking away from my contract in Atlanta, there was a chance that no one was going to pick me up and I was going to be having to support myself. So I chose to take that risk. I walked away from my contract. I packed up my bags, moved, and then, I felt as though I had a chance to have somebody pick me up, but no one did when I moved there. So I was, for a while there, I was fine. Like I was making it work, just trying to be like a little bit better with how I spent my money and all that. But then it hit a point where I really needed some sort of financial support because I was having, I'm traveling a lot and I'm having to pay for rent and all these things. And it was something I hadn't had to deal with in years because I had a contract. So it was really tough, but I hit a point where I was like, okay, like I just am not going to feel comfortable unless I'm like having some sort of income, because also the hard part is to give like all of your, like to be the best athlete you can be, you really have to give like all of your time to that and to your training. And, it sounds crazy, but it's like we have to, like sleep so much and eat well. And it really becomes a full-time job being an athlete at this level. So I like had tried putting off like doing anything else as long as I could. And then I hit a point where I was like, I wasn't comfortable anymore with like how much like I was spending and how much my bank account was just like draining. And I didn't want to get to a point in time where I wasn't able to go to a meet or something because I couldn't afford it. So I wanted to like stop that while I could and while I still like had some savings left. And so I've always done nannying on the side, like growing up in the summers and stuff. So I hopped back on care.com, met literally the most incredible family who is like, they like have so much in my heart now because they really helped me through like a tough time. And they were so supportive of me. They were so willing to work with my like very crazy schedule. And yeah, it meant the world to me, like how much they were able to work with me so that I could do both.
Well, I think hearing a 20-year-old that lives in Broad Ripple and is struggling with finances a bit, that sounds like a lot of people here in the Indy. It sounds like Kevin Bowen from about 10 years ago in the Indy area. Can you give a shout out to the family? It seems like they are a big part of here locally, turning this into a trip to Paris.
Yes, the McGinleys. I love you. I think they're listening right now. They have, oh gosh, am I going to get this wrong? 6 kids? No. God, this is embarrassing. I haven't been with them in a while, but I really was mostly in charge. They have 2 little ones. So I was in charge of Derek and Arilee, the little guys. But Cora, Riley, and Brogan. Okay, there's 5 of them. Sorry. And yeah, so they were really great to me, and they still are like so supportive watching all my races. They've been rooting me on all along the way, and I've had really good luck, and I feel like I've done well since like they've been in my life. So I feel like they're kind of my lucky charm.
It's a
I
great.
love that.
It is.
Shout out to the McGinleys.
It's a great story. Ally Wilson with us. We'll be running the 800 meter coming up here in a couple weeks there in Paris. She joins us on the Payless Liquors hotline. I want to get into your mind for a second. You moved to Indy. I'm sure you probably don't know many people at all. Okay, there's all of the angst around your career. You mentioned the contract, finances, money, and everything else, but you're also trying to make the Olympics. You have a good chance, and it's all going to come down to just a couple races, right? If you end up making the Olympics, do you find that you're stronger going through kind of those hardships? Did that kind of mold you in any way? And I guess if you can just talk about you going through that, Ally. It seems like there would be a lot of angst within your life at that point, not knowing kind of what's next.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've been through enough in my life in this sport to know that like I can go through really hard things and still like kind of like get what I want at the end of it. So it's like I always just tell myself like, all the other hardships I've dealt with really bad injuries, I broke my foot my junior year of college, had a screw put in it, and I was out for the entire year. Like, there's just so many things. And I know, like, any athlete, like there's no athlete ever in the history of athletes who hasn't dealt with hardships. So I know I'm not the only one, but I do know that I've never been afraid to take a risk. I've never been afraid to bet on myself. I felt a lot of loyalty to my coach and what he has done with me, and it felt very wrong to, like, not go through this last year with him. And so I feel like those were the things that were most important to me, and I just leaned in and did what I had to do and, just worked hard, and, yeah, it paid off.
Well, it's a hell of a story here from a local angle. Again, Ally Wilson joining us here, Olympian coming up, 800 meters. Shout out to the McGinley family and her nannying with them earlier this year. Ally, I'm curious, like, obviously the race itself is going to speak for itself when you get to Paris, and I know that is where your focus is. But is there a moment, maybe a person, maybe a fellow Olympian that you're really looking forward to meeting Olympian-wise, moment experiencing-wise, here coming up in the next couple of weeks that's not related to your race itself?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the thing I'm, like, really looking forward to the most, other than my races, are definitely the opening ceremonies. I feel like it, like, still hasn't completely hit me yet, so I think that might be, like, where it actually does. Like, I think it's going to feel really real in that moment, just being there and being a part of that. So, yeah, I feel like that will just be, like, a moment I will never forget. And then, yeah, I mean, there's so many other sports. Like, I've always loved watching. I was a soccer player, so I hope I can get to some of the women's soccer games. The gymnasts are insane. I think they've always been some of my favorite to watch over the years. So I hope I can go watch Simone Biles. Like, I don't know if this is her last Olympics or not, but she's obviously a legend. So if I could see her in real life, that would change my life.
Ally Wilson joining us on the Payless Liquors Hotline. She'll be running the 800-meter coming up in Paris in a couple weeks. Has some local ties. A fun interview as well. You know, Ally, we had Cole Hocker on the 1500 men's side last week, and I asked him. One thing I asked him was, "Hey, how early in the race do you know if your plan is going to work?" Now, obviously, he's in a much longer race than you are, and he said, by the end of the first lap into that second lap, I know if I'm going to have to go to Plan B or Plan C, or if Plan A is going to work. I mean, you had to be third in this. You kicked all the way from fourth to second in the last, few yards. Quite frankly, when do you know in a race if Plan A is going to work for you? And in the race in which you qualified, was that Plan A that was working out for you, where you would be able to close quick?
That's a good question. Honestly, like, I feel like I've learned enough that I can't plan for anything. So I really didn't plan for anything. Obviously, I run through all different scenarios in my head and what I would do beforehand. But I'm like, too often we get all caught up in, like, how we want the race to go. And then when it doesn't go that way, it's, like, really hard and confusing. Like, it's just not what you expected, and then you don't know how to deal with it. So I just kind of went into it being like, my plan is to get top 3, whatever that looks like. Like, I don't know, but that's the plan. So, yeah, I mean, I tried to just at least position myself, get up there in the front and, be in a good position to, like, strike when I had to. I feel like I come from at the 800 from more of a strength perspective, so I don't necessarily have the foot speed of some of my competitors. So I never want to, like, leave it to chance at the end and leave it to a foot race those last 50 meters. But because it was an honest race, I think that's where you saw my strength there at the end. Like, I was able to kind of close in on them those last 100 meters. But yeah, if it had gone out differently and people were making it tactical, I probably would have went around them and tried to take it myself, because I knew that was going to be my best chance at making the team. So I felt pretty good once I knew that it was honest. But I didn't think for a second until I crossed that line that I was safe by any means, because you just never know.
Well, Ally, congrats. Thank you for sharing your story with our audience. Your genuine joy is certainly evident, getting to hear from you. I hope that you've also gained a lot of fans here locally. They'll be cheering for you coming up in a couple weeks when you start that 800 meters in Paris. So congrats on qualifying. It's obviously beyond an incredible accomplishment. We glad that you got some roots here in Indy, and it sounds like you had a good time here. Safe travels here over the next couple weeks, and we'll be rooting for you.
Thank you so much.
That is Ally Wilson right there on the Payless Liquors hotline. If I have this right schedule-wise, Andy, Thursday, August 1st. That will be the 800 meters for the women. I think you could just feel her energy and feel her joy.
That's a great story, right?
Yeah, it is it's a hell of a story. So pretty cool here. We're trying to get kind of some local angles with some of our Olympians here coming up. And Ally Wilson certainly qualifies as that.
You know what's interesting just about, she mentioned having to take a gamble or two in life. Not everything is, not everything are the basketball teams, right? To where, there's a lot of money, there's a lot of endorsements, everyone knows you, you're playing in other leagues, so you're consistently making money. So it's easy, for any of these men and women. I shouldn't say easy, but you know what I mean. I mean, we're making multi-million-dollar deals and everything else, but that's not every Olympic story. In fact, most Olympic stories, I would imagine, are probably a little bit closer to Allie's than Bam Adebayo, right? Or even if Caitlin Clark would have made the team, whatever it is. I mean, she's having to move from Atlanta to Indianapolis, doesn't know anybody, doesn't have a job, walks away from a contract, follows her coach.
That dropped her.
Yeah, follows her coach, moves here, is, training, living her life, doing her thing. At some point says, hey, the contract money's running out, the bank account's a little bit low. Now I got to go get a job, but I got to get a job in which I have the flexibility to, train and do what I need to do to try to make the freaking Olympics. And like all of that it just seems to be very stressful. And then she comes out on the other side, and it's just, I was watching her race during the break, KB, and it's like, you don't know all these people's stories. And then going to the Olympics, Ally makes the big kick to where she's fourth, and the race is almost over, and she moves to the right, goes by a couple different racers, ends up second, and off she goes to Paris. If she doesn't make that kick and she's fourth, she did all this for the last however many months to get to that point, and it doesn't happen, but she got to that point, and it did happen. It's a fantastic story. Good for her.
A 20-something in Broad Ripple maybe struggling to fund beer Olympics. I don't think struggling to fund anything from a track and field Olympic standpoint was ever on my radar, if I could speak from my own Broad Ripple experiences. So shout out to Ally, the McGinley family there. Again, she is in London right now training, coming up for the Olympics. Tomorrow we'll have Sam Pezic on a little bit later in the show. For our audience, they might recall Sam's name. 2008, I guess, would have been the year. She was an Olympian in gymnastics, and now she is the color commentator alongside Terry Gannon for the gymnastics. So when you think about the most popular watched events, in the Olympics, certainly basketball would qualify. Swimming is annually up there. In particular, the women's gymnastics always ranks very, very high on that list. So awesome accomplishment for Sam Pezic to have that. Really enjoyed her insight during the trials a few weeks ago. So she's going to join us a little bit later in the show to talk Simone Biles, as Ally mentioned, and some other storylines from a gymnastics standpoint coming up here in a few weeks.
What was the name of the family again? I did not write it down.
The McGinleys, correct?
Okay, there you go.
Which that is certainly that's a big old East Side group, if that's the same McGinleys. I know there's a lot of McGinleys, a lot of places here in Indianapolis. So great energy there from Ally Wilson.
Well, maybe they're going to start listening to the show every morning now. The McGinley
did we
family.
Gain one?
You think we converted the entire family over?
Would they like to wear a Nielsen rating pager?
Would they like to do that?
Is that allowed?
Did they like our discussion? Is Quinn Nelson overrated per one AFC scout?
Indispensable Colt coming up here, number 4 on the list. We'll do that in about 10 minutes. Speaking from a Team USA standpoint yesterday, I thought it was – I already think and know that Steve Kerr really, really trusts Tyrese Halliburton, but I thought the fact that Halliburton closed that game yesterday, Andy, with those 2 threes, I think it is going to do wonders to late-game situations for Team USA in Paris. I could really see them turning to Halliburton, because for those that didn't watch it yesterday with Australia, big lead for the USA pretty much for the first 3.5 quarters. Wilts away, gets down to, 3-4, and you could kind of feel the arena starting to get a little nervy. And, Steve Kerr is not going back to his starters, really.
Right.
He put Anthony Edwards back in, but, he didn't really want to do that. He wanted to see the second unit get through it. And they were struggling to score, handle the basketball, et cetera, et cetera. Halliburton hasn't scored all game. I think he's taken one shot. He hits back-to-back threes to ice it in the final few minutes. And I just wonder, when they get into the one-and-done format and they think about guys they trust on the floor, while he might not be a starter every game, does a moment like yesterday lead to Halliburton being a little bit more front and center on Steve Kerr's mind as one of the 5 out there late? Because there's going to be those moments. As much as we think Team USA should be like the 92 Dream Team and, beat Angola by 50 every game.
It's just not going to happen.
That's not the reality.
No, it's not.
And will Halliburton now be part of that? To me, that's my biggest takeaway from yesterday. Did he help himself earn a little bit more of a look? You're going to take away a star off the floor when you do that. Maybe whatever, a Steph or maybe an Edwards or Durant, LeBron, whoever would be that. But I'm very curious to see if that's something that we see.
Well, we even saw, definitely at the end of the game, we saw them go Halliburton off the ball. Almost like the Pacers do occasionally when Andrew Nembhard or TJ McConnell are running out there with Halliburton. You see him, kind of going to the corner and doing that. One thing I would like to see, I would actually like to see this team. I guess when I say go small, that means Joel Embiid is not in the game. Now, I don't know if that means Anthony Davis has to be in the game, and I thought Davis, for the most part, looked a little bit better yesterday than what we saw with Joel Embiid. Embiid's just a difficult one because he's so lumbering, but he also is so good. He was backing guys down. He's got 3 guys draped on him, and he gets an and one, right? And so, obviously, he's a very good player. I'd like to see them go small and let Tyrese get them out and run a little bit.
For every team, or do you think? And
I think every game's going to be different, don't you?
I said this to you early on. With Embiid out there, it looks a tad clunky. And yes, to your point, he had some moments yesterday. I mean, hell, he even hit a 3 yesterday, I think. But against Jokic, against Gobert and Wembanyama, is that why? Embiid is going to be, should I give more credit to those matchups when you do face traditional, even Canada the other night? They don't really have a big per se that they're throwing into. Australia yesterday, it's not like, I know the kid from St. Mary's was unbelievable, but still, I'm interested to see if there are specific teams, i.e. Jokic and Serbia, i.e. France with, Gobert and Wembanyama, that is why you have Joel Embiid. Granted, of course, Wembanyama can be, such a talent from the perimeter as well.
I'm trying to find the final box score that actually had the team stats. I think the only thing that bothers me in game 1 against Canada, they had 15 turnovers in that game. And last night they had probably 16 or 17 at least. If you see that, let me know. I'm kind of searching for it here. I have all the player stuff. But I just thought turnover-wise was what surprised me probably the most with Team USA, how just sloppy
they had
they were.
18 for the game.
18.
Australia had 13.
So that's 33 turnovers. Again, I'm not overreacting, but that's how Australia got back in the game. They just kept turning the ball over.
I will say that if you want to, again, nitpick a little bit with Team USA from yesterday, they shot it unbelievable from 3 for them. They were 12 of 25, 12 of 30, something like that.
They were 12 of 29. They shot about 42%.
And Australia couldn't throw it in the ocean from 3. There's going to be a game in Paris.
They were 22%.
Where the reverse of that happens.
Oh, there'll be some guy who's balding like me who will go out there and
Rudy
bang in 4 or 5 threes.
For Spain is going to hit
100%.
6 threes, or insert your player here. When that happens, how does the U.S. react to that? So again, tomorrow, Serbia. That is also a noon game. Their final exhibition from Abu Dhabi. I do want to make sure. Shout out to Chad Wilson. She's part of, Chad Graham. She's part of Allie's team in getting her ready for certainly training for the Olympics. Helped us out and set up that interview. And Lara Overton, she's been terrific. And a little insight into some of these racers here. It's a great, great story. If you missed out with Ally Wilson, that'll be up on our podcast here in a few
I was wondering how you tracked him down. So Lara helped us a little bit?
Lara helped us.
Okay.
Again, shout out to Chad.
Yeah, good job on both. We appreciate it.
He does some muscle activation stuff here in the city. He is a listener, so appreciate that as well. And I thought Allie's story was pretty darn good. So we'll try to continue some local Olympic ties here in the next week or so is week from Friday, I believe, is the opening ceremonies from Paris.
They wear the fancy Ralph Lauren clothes.
And
I wanted to ask her about that. That would have been my only other question because I like them. They're fly.
Aren't they going down the river?
Oh, yeah, they are. Yeah,
for
you're
the opening
exactly
ceremonies
right.
there?
That's what they're doing this time.
It's quite the ordeal. Don't picture like the biggest stadium in France and everybody walks around a track. That's not how the opening ceremony is going to work. It sounds like a very sophisticated and a very French way.
Well, I was going to
do the opening
say, I mean,
ceremonies.
Team USA, we have so many athletes. So, I mean, we're going to need a full,
We're going to need a cruise ship.
We're going to need an entire cruise ship. And then there's the countries that have 1 or 2 Olympians, and they're going to be in a little boat?
Yeah.
We're going to be on the Elon Musk cruise ship?
I think they're going to be in a kayak.
They're going to be in a kayak. Who's the guy that owns Amazon? Bezos?
Yeah.
By the way, you know what today is, right? Today and tomorrow. Do the Bowens care? Do the Dightons care?
Oh, is it a...
it's Amazon Prime Day.
Is it a Prime Day?
Yeah. Come on, you guys are going to order something. Come on.
Pray for those delivery people. Driving through all this rain and driving through all the flooding. That sounds awful.
I mean, they're going to have to hate the Sweeneys because I have a feeling, I mean, the over-under on boxes from Amazon we're going to have in the next week show up at the Sweeney household. I don't even know where to set the over-under. 6.5, 7.5. It's going to be one of those numbers.
Now,
it's time to pounce, brother.
We turned some of those Amazon boxes into good, forts for the kids.
Oh,
and,
yeah, sure.
You gotta drag them around the house in them. They think it's their own boat, if you
think
will.
it's fun.
So those can come in handy in more ways than one.
Yes, they can. Well, as someone who just moved, I did throw away about 100 boxes, and I felt bad after I did so. Someone DM'd me, and they're like, hey, I'm moving. Can I have some of those boxes? I'm like, sorry, man. I just took them, I just recycled them a month ago, whatever it was. So I'm sure I'll get more in the next week.
Tell your buddy to go to like Costco or like Walmart or something like that. All the truck deliveries, they just have boxes just sitting there. They're like, yeah, just take them.
Isn't
They'll give 'em to you?
Costco? They put your groceries in those.
You can, yeah.
In those types of boxes.
Yeah,
there.
they've got a million of them. Just go in there and just grab some.
Indispensable Colt coming up in a few. Before that, let's hit a morning check down.
The Morning Checkdown, brought to you by Butler Bulldogs Basketball. Season tickets are on sale now. Order by August 1st for your shot at the best seats in Hinkle Fieldhouse. Visit butlersports.com/buy tickets.
All right, let's start with the Home Run Derby last night. Your winner for the 2024 Home Run Derby, Teoscar Hernandez of the Dodgers. KB, you mentioned this. I think this is now the 14th Dodger to be in the Home Run Derby, and he's the first to win it. You got to think of some of the names that have come through over the years. He tops Bobby Witt Jr. of the Kansas City Royals, 14-13. That was your final. Now, Mark, let's cue this up. Here's the final call. This is from ESPN television. So Hernandez is in the clubhouse at 14 home runs in the finale. Bobby Witt Jr. has 13 home runs, and he's down literally to his last out. He hits a deep fly ball that's high, it's deep. Unfortunately, it clanks off the bottom of the wall. Here's how it sounded.
Here. Oh, he swung. Gotta go. Get legs. Get legs. Oh, no.
Teoscar Hernandez is your 2024 T-Mobile Home Run Derby champ. It was up there forever and came up just short.
Yeah, so Hernandez got the win. Bobby Witt second. Unfortunately, Kevin Bowen's guy, Gunnar Henderson, 11 home runs, dead last. Sorry about that.
I would have loved to
Gunnar.
have seen
Adoles didn't do me much favors either.
He didn't do too much either.
Hernandez, get to the mic afterwards and be like, that national anthem really inspired me.
It made me who I am today.
It all of a sudden got me to be the true home run king last night.
Did you?
There.
I don't know how closely you watched. So Pete Alonso.
I was in and out.
Understandable.
Alonso bowed out early.
Understandable.
Right?
Yeah. So Alonso was done early. Pete Alonso, the guy, he's an older gentleman that pitched to him, did a terrible job.
Well, and we talked about it yesterday.
He did an absolute terrible job.
Again, the maximum 40 pitches. I thought there was a little bit more pressure on the pitchers than there has been in years past. I saw someone maybe suggest, and you'd have to start the home run derby at like 4 o'clock if you did this, but every team nominate one player to be the home run derby rep for that team. Because, a lot of people point out, like, our best home run hitters, A, they aren't all-stars, or B, they just don't have the name recognition, and they don't want to do it. But they've got, like, the sheer power that just no one really sees. But if you put them in a derby, they, like, I don't know. Again, we're grasping at straws here, trying to create more of an entertainment. So we'll see what is in store tonight for the All-Star game. Again, Paul Skeens on the mound for the NL in that one. All right, Pacers Summer League, 4 o'clock today. They are taking on the Phoenix Suns. We'll see if Jarris Walker And Ben Shepherd, the birthday boy, Ben Shepherd, by the way, I believe 23 today for Ben Shepherd. 4 o'clock, ESPNU against the Phoenix Suns. Again, I want to see Jarris Walker continue to play. I want to see, again, some of that dirty stuff, bringing on both ends of the floor. That is what I would like out of this game today. They will play again on Thursday against Denver, have one more game after that. For what it's worth, Phoenix, if you're looking for some names to note on their roster, Boo Buie.
Yeah.
Northwestern legend there. I would say IU and Purdue killer, frankly.
I was going to say a shudder goes down Matt Painter and Mike Woodson's spine when they hear that name.
Boo Buie for the Suns. Ryan Dunn, Jalen Bridges, a couple other guys that I thought could have interest if they were still there on the board for the Pacers. So Isaiah Wong, former Pacers
Got a
draft
question
pick as
for
well.
you. If you took Jarris Walker a little bit more off the ball, do you think he might be more apt to do some of like the dirty rebounding stuff? No, that has nothing to do with defense. I want to be clear. His second game defensively was not good enough. I'm sure he's been told that it wasn't good enough because, essentially he's kind of running points some of the time that he's out there. I wonder how that changes. That's not something he'll do with the Pacers is kind of what I'm getting
when
at.
he's on the floor, he's never the number one offensive option, obviously, with the NBA team. I do think that falls into a little bit of the bucket of the conditioning label that, Rick Carlisle and Chad Buchanan have shared with us in the past few weeks of, just got to get to more of that conditioning level to where you don't look at the defensive end of the floor as your chance to rest. And I feel like I've seen that. I thought I saw that on Sunday where he got to that end and it wasn't anywhere nearly the same amount of kind of like hunger and edge, which I get it. It's defense that I'd like to see from him. So, yeah, I think it's a fair point to bring up. Again, 4 o'clock, ESPNU today, Pacers and Suns from Vegas.
Yeah, last one for me. Again, we talked about Team USA on the men's side, basketball-wise, 98-92 over Matthew Dellavedova in Australia. He only played 3 minutes, by the way.
I couldn't believe when he got in.
He doesn't even
I was
play.
joking yesterday that he was still on the team.
Well, they're down 20. I might put Delly in. That's the only reason I'm watching this game is for Dellavedova. But anyway, so that game's in the books. Team USA takes on Serbia. That will be noon on Wednesday on Fox Sports 1. You got anything else?
I think I
Good
covered
to go.
everything on my end. Yeah, we saw
Colts-
yesterday that announcement again. Purdue and Auburn, non-conference game in Birmingham this year on the hardwood. The return game will be over at Gamebridge Fieldhouse. So Bruce Pearl, a man that would love nothing more than to coach Indiana University one day.
You think so?
He will take on Matt Painter at Gamebridge Fieldhouse coming up next year. Birmingham this year, next year at Gamebridge.
Love me some Bruce Pearl. All right, so there's your morning check down again. Ally Wilson, great stuff from her. That'll be up on the podcast center, 1075thefan.com. Let's take a break. Our Colts question of the day. We'll dive into that next here on The Fan on this Tuesday.
Looking forward to the 9 o'clock hour. We'll touch base with Tony East. He is back from Las Vegas. Saw the Pacers out there for a couple of games. Interested in his thoughts on what he's seen so far from the Summer League crew. Again, 4 o'clock today, Pacers and Suns.
Is Tony fun out in Vegas? Like he and Scott Agnes, are they guys that are, blackjack table deep into the night? Or are they going to do their podcast and go to bed?
Tony East turns to Tony West, and he's a whole different person.
Yeah, I freshly married. I just cannot see
Tony West. I love that.
Tony East strikes me as some dude I'd love for my daughter to marry. Just a nice, good human.
All right. Wow.
And I also probably think there's an element in talking to Tony at the Fever practice when we were at. There's a little bit of you're balling on a budget. I think he falls in the broad ripple category with us of heading out there, and don't think you're staying in the penthouse at the Venetian.
It's a long time out there. And you can't go, I would imagine, if you lose too much money, night one and night two, that's all you're thinking about the whole time you're out there, right? But if you win, you win $1,000 at the blackjack table, night one, you're good to go.
Don't think he's walking by roulette and saying, let's put this on red and see what happens here.
Boy, I would struggle. Those walking by those tables, they call my name.
There was one
morning.
They
whisper in my ear.
When we were out there about a month ago, there was one morning where Maddie wanted to go do some yoga, so I was like, all right, I'll just gamble. So it's about 10:30 in the morning on the blackjack table, and I feel like I've had a nice 15, 20 minutes. I feel like I'm building a little bit of a stack. Some dude walks up, 3 of his buddies standing behind him, hands $500 to the dealer, and just puts the 1 in the air. Dealer hands him a $500 chip. He bets it, and he gets blackjack.
He gets blackjack, of course. Yeah.
I mean, I'm like,
I know.
what?
I know.
I know. How do you even
Did you just get up and leave?
How do you even congratulate the guy?
Well, I was up there, Indiana Downs. I was at the casino, and a guy told me he had lost $1,800 at the other table, and so he walked on. And he walked onto our table and put $400 or $500, whatever it was. And they have the fire bets where you're playing poker, basically. Again, you can get a straight or a flush or whatever. Right. You're playing your cards and then their cards, and he hit 3 of them, and they're all 20 to 1, 30 to 1, and he hit 3 of them and immediately just won. He immediately won all of his money back. I've been playing the fire bet for $5 for the last hour and a half, and I've won it once, and I've won $35 or whatever it was. So
the old stories of gambling. Let's head to our Colts indispensable list. Yesterday we began again. These are the most indispensable Colts, so the guys they cannot afford to lose for the season. As we said yesterday, at least for me, this doesn't qualify as the 5 best Colts on the team. It qualifies as guys that, yes, are good players, but also play positions that probably lack depth a bit, because if you lose them, you're really going to feel it, i.e. Grover Stewart for a month and a half last season, when you saw his loss, or Michael Pittman for that Atlanta game last season, those sorts of stories. So yesterday I had Kenny Moore, number 5 on my list. You had Michael Pittman Jr., number 5. Andy Sweeney, who do you have on number 4?
Number 4.
Yeah, this is going to happen to us, that we're going to kind of double up because some of the players are going to be the same, just in different spots, and that's what we have today. I have Kenny Moore checking in at number 4. And some of the reasonings are the exact things that you just mentioned. Specifically at corner, we don't totally know what we're going to see from young players. We don't totally know what the depth chart is going to look like. That is going to be something, some things in camp matter, some things in camp won't matter. I think the battle there at corner, seeing the maturation of some of the young guys, is absolutely going to matter. But one thing we know, they wanted Kenny Moore to come back, and they do bring him back this offseason. And, you mentioned yesterday in your analysis, inside corner, you play that base defense, you can kick him outside. I know that Bryce Young is terrible and that coaching staff was bad in Carolina, but listen, Kenny Moore won that game for the Colts last year in Carolina with those 2 pick sixes. So I think if nothing else, he is just a really solid football player, a guy you can throw out there and you kind of forget about, right? You sit it and forget it. That's how I view Kenny Moore. If he were to go down, I'm not exactly sure how they would shuffle there at corner. So I knew he was going to be in my top 5. I kind of battled, would he be number 5? Would Michael Pittman Jr. be number 5? How that would go. Ultimately, the addition of A.D. Mitchell, and I am hoping the addition of a healthy Jelani Woods means there. And by the way, Anthony Richardson, him being able to run with Jonathan Taylor, I thought, okay, maybe Michael Pittman Jr. is not going to have to be everything to the passing offense. That's why I moved him down a spot and I moved Kenny Moore up because, we know they just did not do anything this offseason at corner. We thought they were going to, and they didn't. Bringing back Kenny Moore was the number one thing the Ballard needed to do, and he did it. And so there you go. I have him checking in at number 4.
One more thing to add on Moore, who, again, I had number 5 on the list. It's pretty wild to look at his career. There's 2 seasons where he's missed, I would say, a chunk of time, about a month plus. Those 2 years are easily the Colts' worst 2 seasons in the last, well, I guess you call it the Ballard era, because I think Ballard's era pretty much spans Kenny Moore's era as well. It's kind of wild that a corner, has that sort of, correlation with the win-loss record. You don't typically, I think, see that, but, is that just a random stat or is there something more there? I don't know, but it definitely stands out to me with Kenny. I'm going to go with DeForest Buckner, number 4, for me. And the reason for that is I think on this list, you will find that there are players that fall into positions that have far, far less depth. I think you can make the argument, if you're going to list the positions of strength for the Colts, you would put defensive tackle atop the list.
Absolutely.
But I just think Buckner is a rare commodity of a durable, productive, 3-down, disruptive defensive tackle. And those guys do not grow on trees. So to me, while I try to look at quality player and positional depth and pair those together when formulating an indispensable list like that, to me, Buckner is such a unique player that you can't really look at the depth chart too much there, because if you were to have to go to the depth chart, which again, Buckner, the only game he's missed in his NFL career with the Colts, I think it was because of a close contact due to COVID.
It was in 2020. He played 15 games, yeah.
Colts haven't had to have
life
life without Buckner. I mean, we saw life without Grover Stewart.
Yep.
I think it would look even uglier, life without DeForest Buckner. So for me, again, it's not because of a lack of depth. I mean, they even went out and got Raekwon Davis in the offseason. I think Dayo Adengbo and Tyquan Lewis can slide inside in a pinch. But for 3-down ability, a guy that you can rely on week in and week out, to me, I'm putting DeForest Buckner on this list.
And, I tell you what, the Pro Football Focus numbers, I know some people don't care about those sorts of things. I don't know if they would agree with this, but I don't know. I kind of feel like last year was as good of a year that Buckner has had. I mean, don't you? I don't know. I mean, you look at just his numbers would prove that. And again, you mentioned durability. I mean, even going back to San Francisco in 2016, KB, I mean, 15 games played, 16, 16, 16, 15 in 2020. You mentioned all the COVID nonsense. And then the last 3 years, 17, 17, and 17. I think, his strength is not that he's a very good player, great player, is he's just so available. I mean, you don't see that availability in the NFL.
We're talking all 3 downs. If you get nerdy with the defensive line, it's a group that rotates probably more than any group on the entire football team. But on 3rd down, it's Grover Stewart that goes off the field. You even saw Kwity Paye come off the field last season on 3rd down. Buckner stays on the field, and he is the guy that oftentimes the opposing offensive line is formulating their pass protection plan around doubling DeForest Buckner. So that is what separates him on this list. Again, as you'll see my list play out here the rest of the week, it's not that it's a position group that lacks depth. It's that it would take 2 to 3 guys.
Right.
To kind of make up for Buckner, where at that position, again, he falls into the pretty rare category of that end. So far for me, Kenny Moore, 5, DeForest Buckner, 4. And so far for Andy, Michael Pittman Jr. at 5 and Kenny Moore at 4.
I don't want to spoil this. DeForest Buckner, and I would even say Grover Stewart, but even more so with Buckner, I struggled where to put those guys on my list, or even would they be kind of an odd man out, like 6th on my list.
I mean, there's going to be, trust me, when I get to 1, there's going to be people that I left off this list that people are going to heavily disagree with, and you might be one of them.
Okay.
And I think that's what
I'm
makes
ready for it.
this sort of list really interesting to try. How do you define it, and how do you look at the depth of the position, and how do you look at the player on the roster as well? So, again, we are 8 days away from being up at Grand Park. That will be report day for the Colts. We should hear from Chris Ballard on that day. It won't be as, maybe as juicy as the Jonathan Taylor opening day from last season, but nonetheless, we'll chat with the Colts GM, and then we'll be up there for the first practice starting a week from Thursday.
All right, so last thing on this, Buckner's going to be 31 going 32 when his contract runs out here. He signed that 2-year deal. I mean, you have any feeling on what they may want to do with him? I mean, if he were to stick around for another, 3-4 years, you're talking about a guy that would be like a Ring of Honor guy with the Colts. I mean, that's how good Buckner's been, right? Or would you disagree with that?
Boy, I don't know. The whole Ring of Honor debate, I think is I hold it in a higher standard than I think a lot of people do. I mean, to be in that Ring of Honor.
You're like Harrison, Wayne, Manning. You're thinking that.
I mean,
you think Buckner would be a little bit below that?
If you want to put guys into a Colts Hall of Fame, but Ring of Honor, that's a little. You literally have your name in the stadium. Like, that to me is a big deal. And obviously, you can laugh at some of the names that are up there, from previous eras that probably shouldn't be up there. And I get that, some would counter and say, well, it was a different standard of Colts football, it was a different era, et cetera, et cetera. Really, really, really good player. Ring of Honor to me.
Not yet. You want to see a little bit more. Okay, fair enough. So
different animal.
We'll be doing that every single day. We'll see who is number 3 on our list coming up tomorrow. Sasha Stevanovic going to join us in 10 minutes. We'll keep it going. It's a Tuesday, rainy Tuesday, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Good Tuesday morning to you. Certainly an ugly night weather-wise around the state, especially northern part, up into Chicago. So hopefully you're not dealing with any power issues or anything off of those storms. The rest of the week does look a lot better, but certainly not an ideal start to this week. Sasha Stefanovic going to join us in a few, obviously on the Purdue staff right now with Matt Painter, but also he's a part of the TBT tournament that's going to take place at Hinkle Fieldhouse. Ran into a member over the Butler Athletic Department the other day, said that ticket sales going pretty well.
Good.
Coming up for the TBT tournament.
It's a fun event.
Butler's going to have a team. Shelvin Mack, who's part of that team, will join us coming up on Thursday. We had Christian Watford, who's the GM of the IU team. He joined us last week. Stefanovic going to play in it. So the Purdue team has definitely got some names you'll recognize. So Sasha will join us here in a few.
Yeah, they've done a good job tapping into, the schools have really rallied around it. I mean, even locally here. Does Notre Dame have? I'm asking that because I don't know.
I don't believe they still do. They won the first one.
Yeah. That's why I asked.
And I don't think they still have one.
Oh, well, come on, Notre Dame. What are we doing here?
Probably
come
a sign
on.
of where the program has been lately.
That's probably right.
But not with Micah Shrewsbury at the helm, baby.
There
Come
you
on.
go. I saw Trey Singleton, a kid from Jeffersonville, got an old
he was
Notre
blown
Dame
up yesterday with all
commit.
the offers. I saw that.
He got an offer from them. He got an offer
Braylon
from
Mullins from Greenfield Central continues to blow
He
up.
got an offer from Purdue as well, so some local kids doing pretty well. Now, one thing I wanted to bring up, I don't know if you saw this or not, I tweeted this out. So, ongoing right now, very self-important are the SEC Media Days. They love nothing more than to pat themselves on the back, and it's always great when teams like Mississippi State and Vanderbilt and Kentucky and South Carolina get to ride on the back of Georgia and Alabama and, all the schools that actually win in football in the SEC. But they're in Dallas, okay? Texas joins the league, so, they go to Texas immediately. Did you see they had the coaches on top of a mechanical bull yesterday?
Yeah, I got nervous watching that, I'll be honest with you.
Did you see your boy Brian Kelly?
Brian Kelly dancing with that recruit that one time.
For people that haven't seen it, there's Brian Kelly right there on the old bull.
There's
Looking
nothing like the SEC. There's nothing like it.
And I mean that in a good. Are you mean that in a good way and a bad way?
I don't know. I don't know what I mean it by. There's nothing like it.
They're just very self-important. That's what they are. But they do have a lot of NFL players now. This is year 3 for Brian Kelly. So you know what year 3 means when you take over a program, KB.
Well,
it's the year.
Marcus Freeman falls into that boat as well.
Does he really? Well, he's top 10, is he not? Are they preseason top 10, Notre Dame?
I believe so. Should they be worried about Texas A&M week 1? I am worried.
No. Why are you worried?
Well, at Texas A&M?
I'm not. I don't think you have to be worried. Come on. It's year 3. It's Freeman.
I believe the Vegas line has it as a pick 'em.
Do they really?
Yeah.
Okay.
At Texas
worried
A&M
about Bobby
night game,
Petrino?
that ain't traveling to Dublin to take on Navy week 1.
I would agree with you, but you notice your analysis is all around their crowd.
Well,
don't
sure.
be worried about their crowd.
And
it's overrated.
Notre Dame is having a new quarterback.
Who is their quarterback?
Riley Leonard.
I ask you all that all the time. I like Riley Leonard.
Yeah,
he's going to go in there. He's going to get the win.
Mike Elko, head coach from Duke, now the new head man at Texas A&M.
So anyway, just some fun there, obviously, as Brian Kelly on the Bulls. Some of the other coaches will be taking pictures of that as well. Sasha Stefanovic, we'll talk with him next. 9 o'clock hour around the corner. Wake up call, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
begin the 9 o'clock hour. Was certainly one of the best shooters that fight song and that program has seen, and he is now a member of Matt Painter's staff. And maybe most importantly for this weekend, the man's trying to win a whole lot of money for the TBT team. The men of Mackey, Sasha Stefanovic, joins us now on the Payless Liquors hotline. Again, he will be part of the Purdue bunch that will be at Hinkle Fieldhouse coming up this weekend as they battle for that $1 million prize in the TBT tournament. Sasha, good Tuesday morning to you, man. Thanks for the time.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me on.
All right, walk us through the selection process, how you became a member of this team, and what your expectations are.
So Ryan Kay, who's the general manager of the Men of Mackey team and has kind of put together this the TB team for Purdue for these first few years, reached out to me last year too, and it was always something that I think it's pretty cool. I think it's a cool opportunity to, represent Purdue and wear, our colors some more times and everything when you're done playing or you're still playing overseas or whatever it may be. So I was always interested, but it just didn't work out with the dates. And, last year it was in Dayton, and but now this year being in Indy, and me having a little pocket of time to go, I think it was a really cool chance for me to, like I said, represent Purdue another time, and it's going to be really exciting. It's hopefully we could be really competitive. We got some good players on our team, and hopefully we could come out with some wins.
All right, Sasha, so I feel like I'm asking you this, and you're 100 years old. You're only 25 years old. How many minutes can the body give in a game like this? What do you think?
Hey, that's a great question. I'm one of the few people on this team that is not a professional basketball player anymore. So that's a good question. We're going to go out there. We're going to see. I don't play as much anymore. We play pickup a lot here with some of the guys.
Sure.
On staff and everything. But, these guys are real professional players. So, if I could give some good minutes, just shoot up a couple threes, not really embarrass myself on national television, I think that's the goal for myself.
Sasha Stefanovic joins us here on the Payless Liquors hotline. We had Sasha on earlier this season during Purdue's incredible run of the national title game. We'll certainly toss a few Purdue team-related questions his way. Sasha, a lot of guards on this team. Who do we need to pitch for playing time?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. I'm okay with being more in a player coach type role, but I don't know. We have some really, really good guards. I think obviously we have a lot of guys that are still playing overseas and pretty high level. So it's just going to be cool for myself to play with some guys that I used to play with, like Eric. Eric is one of my favorite teammates I've played with. So, I'll let them take the reins most of the time. If they need some subs or breaks or anything, I'll hop in.
Yeah, Eric Hunter, John Octius, David Jenkins, Kelsey Barlow, some names that will be familiar to Purdue fans. We had Christian Watford on last week describing the IU team. He mentioned, and I asked him, okay, late game, who you going to? He said Yogi Ferrell would be the obvious choice there. Late game for the men of Mackey. Who would be getting the ball here with the old Elam ending?
It's a good question. I think it probably is going to end up going to like Kelsey Barlow. I think his experience in the tournament and like his ability to shot create and everything. He's a really, really good player, super talented. And I know he really takes this seriously. So I think he's kind of like the leader of our team. So I think it'd probably end up going to him. I think he could get it done for us.
Yeah, but Sasha, I kind of think it should go to you. You're being way too humble here. You still got the shot, right?
He's acting like he's at the Cactus every night till 3 a.m.
Well,
and he's in terrible shape.
Sasha's acting like you act like you're going to be drawing up the play. We may need to throw you in a game here to hit one of these threes to win a game.
This is not timeout for Coach Painter here.
Fair enough. I can do both, but you got to know your strengths. You got to know your weaknesses. I'm not a really shot creator. I'm
Fair enough.
I'm coming off screens and maybe shooting some threes, or I'm maybe shooting some threes, and I think that's my role.
Do you like the Elam ending? Just, as a basketball conversation, I like it. Watching the TBT, I think it's a perfect thing for the TBT. I think it could even be integrated in some other, American basketball. Some would disagree with that. Do you like the Elam ending?
Yeah, I definitely do. It's so unique. Like it's just you don't see that very often. I like how they adapted it for the NBA All-Star game. I think it makes it more competitive towards the end. But yeah, it's pretty cool. I don't know if it will ever actually get adapted into any other organizations within basketball in the States. But it's cool. It allows different strategy. Calling timeouts when you need to and fouling when you need to or anything like that. But it's unique, and it's going to be cool to be a part of it.
And he's one of the best shooters in program history. Sasha Stefanovic is with us here on the Payless Liquors hotline. He's also a member of Matt Painter's staff. We had Sasha on during the season. And when you watch Purdue play with my eyes, I'm like, oh, okay, here comes the guy from behind the bench to dial up some out-of-bounds plays. Sasha, you're titled Director of Player Personnel. Could you share for our audience kind of what your duties are? Obviously, in-game, we've talked about it. Feel free to expand on that, if you will, but also kind of behind the scenes.
Yeah, like you said, in-game, Coach Painter has given me the responsibility of calling our under out-of-bounds plays and our side out-of-bounds plays during the game. Letting me draw up some plays during timeouts and those situations and everything has been really cool for my development and just learning and allowing me to, try to be creative and make some plays for us to score. But along with that, I think really the development of, our players and, individual workouts when I can, when the hours allow. And then from a recruiting standpoint, I don't go on the road yet, but, every time that, players visit or anything like that, helping with and aiding with, visits and everything like that. So a little bit of everything, but more, strictly working with the offensive side when it comes to basketball.
Sasha, obviously you guys return a good amount of names, 6 of your top 8 in minutes played, however you want to look at it, but certainly you lose quite the dominant big man in Zach Edey. How would you describe just how different you guys will look stylistically next year?
Yeah, I think a little bit. I think it's obviously going to be different when you lose a player of a certain caliber like Zach. But I think more of the meat and potatoes of what we do is going to remain the same. I think we run a lot of high ball screens for Braden Smith. We run a lot of certain actions for Fletcher Lawyer. We run a lot of post-ups for Trey Kaufman, right? So I think a lot of what we're going to do is going to, mainly remain the same. But I think it's going to be a little different in how we get to certain actions and how we utilize some of our players. I think Miles, Colvin, and Cam Heide offer a shooting at those positions at the 3, maybe the 4, 2, 3, 4 in those positions that we could use now and come off of pins and allow them to do some certain things. But we also have a really talented freshman class, so it's just kind of good just learning what they do and figuring out where they're going to be the best within our offense as well.
Sasha Stefanovic joining us here on the Payless Liquors hotline, getting ready for the TBT this weekend. Quickly, going to Zach Edey. You mentioned Edey and the team going to be different, obviously, without having the 7-footer, the 2-time Player of the Year, sitting right there in the middle of your offense and defense. He goes top 10. Were you at the draft party and just, I don't know, I mean, as a basketball guy to another basketball guy, you had to be super proud and psyched to see him go 9th overall and go to a place that I think in Memphis, Sasha, they're going to use him. They're going to understand, what he is and what he can do for him.
Yeah, definitely. For myself, it's super, super cool to see his, development into getting into the top 10 of an NBA draft. Like I talk about all the time, but if you saw where he was at when he first got here to where he is today, it's a totally different person. It's a totally different player. It's really just cool to see how he just did the fundamentals. Like I think it's very sometimes it's not stressed enough on how much the basics will get you to a certain spot. I mean, every single day he always does his same routine, and it's just post hooks, mic and drills and all the little things that people seem to overlook that aren't very important, but he stresses it's the most important in his game. and it's really, really, really cool to see as a teammate of his and as a coach of his the development and the reward of getting drafted top 10. But unfortunately for myself, I was actually on an overseas trip with some of our guys, Cam Heidi and Will Berg. We were on an individual trip to Greece. I was helping coach a team there, so I missed his draft party, unfortunately. But nevertheless, super, super proud of him and happy for him and his family.
Sasha, you may not have an answer for this, but I don't know. Did you guys, I say, as a Purdue basketball community there, did you think he would go top 10? Because sometimes dominant guys in college slip. I mean, we all understand that sometimes the 18, 19-year-old with, quote-unquote potential gets drafted before the guy that, has scored thousands of points in his career.
Yeah, like you said, it doesn't really get rewarded for being super productive in college all the time when you're going to the NBA, right? Like you said, like a lot of the draft is all about potential, all about what a player could be, because they have either the measurables or they have a certain athleticism or something that the NBA really values. So it's really cool to see a player like him that was super productive and was a winning player in college get rewarded for that. And it's a little weird how sometimes those things go, but I think of all the players that have been super productive in college that go to the NBA and are able to figure it out. And like a player like Jalen Brunson, like a player like, Malcolm Brogdon, like guys that kind of get overlooked and then they go to the NBA and have success. And I think that could be something that Zach has as well.
Again, Sasha Stefanovic joining us here on the Payless Liquors Hotline, obviously a part of Purdue's coaching staff, but also will be playing in the TBT coming up here this weekend at Hinkle. Sasha, last one before we let you go. We talked about it earlier in the show. You guys announced yesterday you'll be playing Auburn in kind of a neutral site in Birmingham this year at Gamebridge Fieldhouse next year. I'm curious, like, what and I don't know how involved you are with this. Maybe it's Elliot Bloom, maybe it's somebody else on your staff. What do you think kind of goes into a staff when they view a non-conference schedule? You guys have obviously challenged yourselves. You guys have obviously handled it extremely well over the last few years. But I'm kind of curious, like, what that balance is in wanting to challenge yourself. Also, you got to worry about computer numbers and all of that when it comes to making a non-conference schedule.
Yeah, definitely. I think, like you said, Elliot Bloom handles a lot of our scheduling along with Coach Payne. But yeah, when you're going into these games, I think we've really prioritized playing the toughest schedule you can in a non-conference setting, right? I think we do a lot of neutral site games, which is really important for us because when you get to the NCAA tournament, obviously everything is going to be a neutral site. And just getting the players as familiar as they can in those environments and those settings is really important. But, yeah, I mean, I think we really put a value on, like, challenging ourselves and seeing how we react early on. I think we do things a little bit differently where I think we're more prepared at the beginning of the seasons just because we do so much in the summer and the fall, and we get our guys really ready to go. And then we kind of pull back as the season, progresses and you can't practice as much. You can't work them as much just because of, it's a long season. But it's a really cool thing for myself as a player and as a coach now to see, how we really like to do things behind the scenes and scheduling and everything like that, and just trying to play the best of the best and always doing that. Because as a player, that's what you want, right? You want to play against the Dukes. You want to play against the Kentuckys, North Carolinas, Villanovas, the Gonzagas, all the teams that we've played in our non-conference settings these last few years. I think it's really important for us to go and play these guys and show that we're as of the same caliber. So it's really cool, and those games that we have scheduled this year are super exciting, and it should be really good.
Yeah, I think it's 3 straight years of undefeated non-conference schedules. It's pretty absurd what Matt Painter and company have done there in West Lafayette. All right, Sasha, I know you talked up your game like you were a walk-on for this Men of Mackey team. I've got faith you're going to hit some big shots coming up this weekend, so good luck.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it, guys.
Sasha Stefanovic right there on the Payless Liquors hotline. Again, you got alumni teams, Indy, Purdue, Butler, Valpo. They're going to be at the Butler Regional, which is at Hinkle, of course, coming up starting this Friday. You can find the schedule online, tickets as well, thetournament.com. tickets. Yogi Ferrell, Juwan Morgan, Shelvin Matt going to join us on Thursday. They're battling for that $1 million TBT prize. We did talk about it earlier in the show, Andy, just to go over it again. Purdue's non-conference schedule for this season. They'll face Alabama at Mackey. That is a Friday night game coming up November 15th. Then that Tuesday, they'll go up to Milwaukee, take on Marquette. Obviously, you would assume those two teams will be very, very highly ranked this season. Texas A&M, that will be the Indy Classic game this year. So over at Gainbridge Fieldhouse in December. That's December 14th. And then the very next week, they'll go down to Birmingham to take on Auburn there on the 21st. And that does not include, they also got a tournament out in San Diego. I think it's like Ole Miss and Arkansas and maybe BYU. I kind of forget the exact field on that. So certainly another challenging schedule.
I think it's NC State. Yeah, I think NC State is one of those. Fun fact about Birmingham and me.
Oh.
I've never been to Birmingham since MapQuest.
Okay.
I've only been to Birmingham when we printed out MapQuest. I've been through there, but like in the city streets and everything. I've been to Birmingham when MapQuest was popular. I've not been back since.
Well, what were you doing in Birmingham?
There's a music, something, like some concert or something. That's many years ago.
No SEC media day there?
No SEC media days. I've never been to SEC media days. Never been. Back 10, 15 years ago, I would have liked to have gone because you could actually get stuff. But then they just credentialed, I sound like a fat media guy right now. Then they just credentialed everybody, and basically coaches and players would just do podium stuff, and that would be it. I used to know, media guys who would go, you get some one-on-ones, you get, maybe rub elbows with not Nick Saban, but maybe some of the other coaches. You can't do that now. Not going to happen.
Just good to know that the peak of driving safety was flipping through 8 pages of back-to-back MapQuest directions.
It's unbelievable.
Wait, I forgot page
it really
3
is.
here.
Where the hell is this Burger King at?
Exit 56 or 58 here.
Simpler times.
On the old MapQuest. Did want to, and we'll get to a pop quiz here in a few, 317.
Did that say 96th Street behind us? Did we just pass it?
317
0.2 miles.
239-1070, or get in the glove compartment for your maps there when, the MapQuest has failed you. Will Haskett going to join us tomorrow. Is that right, Mark?
That's the plan.
So we'll have Lynn Dunn on our usual Wednesday conversations with the Fever GM as they play their final game before the Olympic break coming up tomorrow night against the worst team in the WNBA, the Dallas Wings. Will Haskett going to join us. This is British Open week, Andy Sweeney.
No,
so
here we go.
We're out at the back nine on Thursday. I cannot wait.
You're going to be all in.
We'll have the TVs, on the back end of that range. One of my favorite things about the back nine, you hit your shot out there and boom. You got a couple TVs staring right back at you. We'll certainly have one of those on the British Open. I don't know if you saw this yesterday, but do you know the name Colin Montgomery?
Of course I know Colin Montgomery, and I know where you're going to go with this, and this is probably the most you and I are ever going to agree is on this subject and this quote. Go ahead.
Chirpy Scott is how I would describe Colin Montgomery. Oftentimes the bridesmaid,
right.
Not the bride here. And he never won a major championship. Colin Montgomery had some quotes earlier in the week where he thinks one Eldrick Woods should retire from the game of golf.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, earlier today at his press conference over at Royal Troon, nothing like the British media saying, you know what, let's lob this question to Tiger. So if you can't quite make out the accent, it is something along the lines of, what did you make of Colin Montgomery saying you should retire? Tiger Woods' response was this.
Tiger, just to almost follow up on that, you've given so much to this game, you've given so much to this championship, but there was comments, last week from Colin Montgomery who said, why is he here, he should retire, there's no point to this. Do you feel that's a bit hurtful and you've earned the right to make the decision when you decide?
Well, as a past champion, I'm exempt till I'm 60. Colin's not. He's not a past champion, so he's not exempt. So he doesn't get the opportunity to make that decision. I do.
There we go.
That's what I mean. You've earned that. You've deserved it.
So when I get to be at his age, I can still make that decision. Well, he doesn't.
Oh, that's a mad Tiger Woods. Oh, he was stewing.
He might win by 10 this week.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, don't do it, Kevin. Don't do it to yourself.
I was wondering if he was going to do this.
You had some spice to Tiger? How about that?
Listen, I don't want Tiger to retire. I hate this. I actually don't totally disagree with Colin Montgomery just because Tiger's so sad now, man.
What do you mean?
He's
still
now
able. I mean, he had the lead at Pinehurst through about 7 or 8 holes.
When does he tee off? You have to know.
We go early. I just saw this. We go early Thursday, so you're gonna have to. No, we go early Friday. Now that I see this. So,
Okay, so Thursday might be. Is it during the show? Is it during back 9?
So about 9:20 on Thursday. So at the back 9, I can't wait to interact. I can't wait to chat. But I'll be honest with you.
But he'll be on the back 9.
My eye contact will be down the range a little bit there at the old TV.
Yeah.
Is that allowed? I'm just apologizing to our listeners up front. We can chat about Tiger
there's
if you like.
There's TVs everywhere. I think it's spot on. I think people know you. They know your
mingle
brand.
in between shots.
Yeah,
How about
your
that?
brand is very much Tiger Woods. Now, the only thing, you hope he's on the back 9 and you're on the back 9 that he is, I don't know, even par-ish. How difficult is
Oh, no,
this?
we need some under par.
Okay, well, how difficult is this
Well,
course? Like 10 under, is that going to
will
win?
Dictate a lot.
Oh, it's going to be terrible weather.
Troon is a course that you get early and you hold on late. That's kind of how the course is. Some
Gotcha.
gettable holes early and you hold on late. Henrik Stenson, Phil Mickelson had an incredible duel at Troon about a decade ago. Henrik Stenson outlasting Phil for that one. Yeah, I think Tiger's got a great shot to win.
Boy, he was snippy there. He did not like that, and I love it. He's totally right.
I love the answer.
I do. I love the answer. Colin Montgomery
is a choker.
And
a fraud.
He's unlikable, though. He's extremely unlikable.
Yes, we don't like him in the States.
Okay, so me and you could not agree more. I mean, every single time we got to the British Open, or excuse me, the Open Championship, it is this year. I remember growing up, Colin Montgomery. No, it's not the year.
It never was the year.
It's never going to be the year. It never was the year.
Nothing like the old as a past champion, comma. I felt like Tiger even paused for the comma to go in there.
How many Opens has Tiger won? I'm not expecting you to know. I'm just wondering.
I was going to say 3, but
okay.
will you double check me on that?
Yeah.
St. Andrews,
I'll do that
Hoy
at some
Lake,
point.
Liverpool. Does that sound right? Those 3? Yes, Tiger with Xander Schauffele and Patrick Cantlay going off about 9:20 coming up on Thursday.
I mean, that's a pretty
morning.
good threesome. Those guys, now, he's friendly with all those guys, right?
I think friendly
From
enough.
Ryder Cup and stuff like
Friendly
that.
enough.
Okay.
Now, something to ask Will Haskett tomorrow. We have had a U.S. male, of course male, a U.S. golfer win each of the last 6 majors. And they're all different. Bryson, of course, just won,
right?
Beating Rory.
Scotty
there with
Scheffler.
You go back, yes, a couple. Scotty Xander won the PGA at Valhalla back in your neck of the woods.
Is Brooks a part of that?
Brooks started this 6-major run. Wyndham Clark won a U.S. Open. Our defending British Open champion is Brian Harmon. Kind of a long shot. So do we get to a 7th American, which would be certainly one of the longest runs in major championship history? Again, if it's a 7th different, where are we going? Are we going Cantlay? Are we going Max Homa? Are we going Colin Morikawa?
Sure, I like it.
Can we resurrect Jordan Spieth or Justin Thomas? Tony Finau get his first major? So just some storylines to keep an eye on here. But old dudes typically do well at the British Open, more so than the other majors.
Huh.
So that's why I think Tiger will win.
I wonder why. I wonder why that is. I mean, how much of the TV coverage is going to be Rory McIlroy? Like, is it going to be that much? It has to be, right? He's back home. He's taking time off, from the choke job. I mean, is that all that's not the only storyline, but for, the guy that's just checking in at 9:30 in the morning and then over the weekend, huge story on television, is he not?
Yeah, and it's, again, kind of the first. He played last week at the Scottish Open, but, the first time where, again, he's opened up a little bit about the U.S. Open and missing that putt. And, if you recall, a couple years ago, that heartbreak with Cam Smith, he was asked about this earlier in the week. Did Pinehurst rank number 1 on your biggest heartbreak? And he said, no. I think it was St. Andrews. St. Andrews a couple years ago, he had a 3-shot lead on the 10th tee on Sunday.
Right, and what that would have meant for him.
And Cam Smith ran him down. And again, if you hear the crowd, I mean, at the U.S. Open, you certainly had a Rory contingent that was pulling for him, but still, there was some of the crowd that, you had the USA chants when, he was over some putts and stuff like that. Over there, they are, they want one of their own to win so bad. So,
well, I hope another American wins. And I hope it's like an American that's down the list. Not even one of our best.
How about that?
I'm fine with that. I just put in Royal Troon weather Okay, I put that
Doesn't sound great,
in Google. Right? Well, of course it doesn't. It says weather forecast includes rain, wind, and uncertainty. Isn't that the Open Championship weather report every year? There's going to be wind, there's going to be rain, the rough is really rough, and we have no idea when the rain or for how long it's going to last.
You mean it doesn't say sunny and 80 there for 4 straight days?
It's going to be 82 and sunny with a gentle breeze. Like, has it ever done that? We need to ask Haskett this. What year, this would put him on the spot, had the best weather at the Open Championship? And maybe it was last year. I obviously, all the years start to run together.
One of the years Tiger won was pretty good weather.
Pretty good weather.
You know me with weather with Tiger. He needs good weather.
Okay, so Tiger's plus 20,000. I mean, obviously, the odds are crazy in golf. He's right ahead of a guy by the name of Romain Langesque. How do you say that? Langasque. Do you have any idea who that guy is?
I think he's driving the Indy 500 next year.
Is he? Uh-huh. Is he going to be for Penske next year?
Friend of Grosjean.
He's taking Rossi's spot on Arrow McLaren. That's what he's doing.
500. Now, speaking of updates, each morning, I like to text Maddie, hey, how are the kids this morning?
Oh, boy.
Her response today, our kids were terrorists this morning.
Oh, no. Come on. Yeah, well, we are to the point.
You couple that with the bad weather and
you can't go outside.
Mom of the year, Maddie Bowen, dealing with that here on this Tuesday morning.
Well, so Nikki will usually send me at some point when they're up and, little man Mason's up, he's eating breakfast or whatever.
Sure.
He's been pretty good. I mean, we have 2 dogs and a cat, and he loves them. And so he just is crawling and chasing him around. But we are to the point, my wife also works from home, that it used to be very much easier to work from home when the baby would just kind of lay there, and that's not the case any longer.
Yeah,
no.
You are reaching the time where longer car rides and or trips and or needing Mason to sit there and behave quietly for 30 minutes is getting difficult.
What I don't understand.
Are we approaching the first birthday?
I mean, we're coming up 10 months. Yeah, September will be birthday 1. I don't understand how it's ingrained in babies to immediately crawl to the electrical outlet. How is that ingrained seemingly? Right. I would imagine you guys as kids did the same. I mean, I know so many kids do the same. How is that ingrained in their minds to do that?
And, of course, we, put the protector on, half of them, and then I feel like when Max was born, there's only, half of them on there now.
Yeah,
I feel like they just know where all the danger is, and that's where they go. They're like, oh, the electrical outlet, this cabinet, the table edge, let me go right to it.
Oh, the one breakable-ish item that you, decided not to baby-proof for some reason there.
You guys know there's water in this toilet thing? I'm going to dig in here for a minute. What are you doing?
Oh yeah, we have a cat, so there is there's the cat food, and then there's the litter box, and
I must share this, and I hope this is not too detaily. We're at the Fever game last Wednesday. Beautiful arena. Andy, you and I were there bright and early on Wednesday morning.
We saw nobody in the stands, and then we saw 17,000
come to life. Place was rocking. At one point, Rosie needs to go to the bathroom. We head into the men's bathroom. Of course, I'm don't need to be showing my face in the women's bathroom. We go into the stall, and there's a paper towel in the toilet.
Okay. Yeah.
Rosie says to me, Dad, get that out. I'm not going until that's out. Now, you all have been in the men's bathroom before. Mm-hmm. There's not a lot of objects at your disposal to potentially get said object out. I'm looking for maybe a plunging type of mechanism. That is not there. So, would you judge me if I stuck the hand in there to get the paper towel out?
No, because I just did the same thing the other day at Kentucky Kingdom when my sunglasses fell in there.
Kentucky. Wow, sunglasses in the toilet.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
My little one is becoming potty trained, and so she went to go on the toilet, and she's doing very well at it. But right before she started going, I leaned over and sunglasses went off the shirt and into the toilet, and I was like, "Hold on!" Had to dig them out. I scrubbed them 3 or 4 times, And then I went to go do a roller coaster later on, and I come out, and Ashley's got them on her head. I'm like, those were in the toilet, by the way. She's like, what? I was like, I washed them a bunch of times, but I just want to. She's like, you couldn't have mentioned that? I'm like, well, I didn't know you were going to put them on your head. Like,
well, okay.
I'm fine wearing them.
This is better than a porta potty if we're grasping at straws.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing in there. It was just water.
As a follow-up, KB, so there's just a paper towel in there. There wasn't anything else. Just a paper towel.
There were no other
Okay.
residue
Sure, yeah.
in there, and I washed my hands thoroughly afterwards.
Right.
But at that point, it's like, just get the hell out of here.
Why didn't you flush it down and then
it was stuck? It would not get out.
It was lodged. Oh wow! So you had to go.
Oh, trust me.
That wasn't just on the surface grabbing a paper towel. You had to go. I mean, your entire hand was.
Yeah, this was submerged.
Mm-hmm. That's fine.
And by the way,
just don't touch your eyes.
What quarter was it of the Fever game?
We were third. It's kind of
boy.
Are they going to make a comeback? Which eventually they did. But
I mean, I guess the only positive is, for a sporting event, the WNBA does have a lot of women that go to the sporting event. At least it wasn't
this was in the men's restroom.
No, but that's what I'm saying. At least there's less men going at a WNBA game
I see what you're saying.
than the Colts and Bills week 4.
And it was a noon game, so maybe the types of deposits wouldn't be as immense if it were a night game. I don't tend to know the science behind some of that, but
it happens. It's going to happen to
you're
me.
Here,
it's
you're
disgusting.
breathing, you're fine.
Tiger will win the British pop quiz time, 317-239-1070 for that. Let's head to a morning check down.
The morning check down, brought to you by Order by August 1st for your shot at the best seats in Hinkle Fieldhouse. Visit butlersports.com/buy tickets.
All right, let's start with the home run derby last night. We might as well. We'll give you that sound again, the final call. So Teoscar Hernandez of the Dodgers, he won over Bobby Witt Jr. there in the final. So here's how it ended. Hernandez had 14 home runs in the final. Bobby Witt Jr. had 13, and Witt had one more chance to tie it and then to try to take the lead. He came up just short. He went off the wall. Here's how it sounded on ESPN.
Here. Oh, he swung. Gotta go. Get legs. Get legs. Oh, no.
Teoscar Hernandez is your 2024 T-Mobile Home Run Derby champ. It was up there forever and came up just short.
Boy, I tell you, right there, so close. Hernandez gets the win. Feel pretty good for him. He wanted to win. He said, hey, I want to be in this. I want to win. And so he got the win. Unfortunately, your boy KB, Gunnar Henderson, was dead last. So anyway.
I hate to be that guy. What time was that at?
Did
we go past 11 o'clock for the final home run?
Yeah, I think it was.
I think so.
It was. Yeah. It was right past 11 o'clock. I mean, no, it's a 3 hour and 15, 20 minute.
I just bailed. I'm sorry, I bailed. And I'm a golf nerd, but I went to live from.
I know. Listen,
I didn't think I really cared for the new format either. I prefer the 10. Everybody gets 10 outs and you're done, not the 40 pitch.
Kind of hard to follow.
Yeah, I was like, I think they overcomplicated it a bit, and it just went forever. I was like, how am I watching all of Monday Night Raw and this thing is still on? How is it still going on?
No, it didn't go to midnight, but it went well past 11 o'clock. Major League Baseball All-Star game tonight at 8 o'clock. We'll catch it in progress at 9 o'clock here on The Fan.
Stephen Kwan, Gunnar Henderson, Juan Soto, the three batters that Paul Skeens will face tonight. We'll see if it gets to Aaron Judge, and that fourth batter as Paul Skeens starts here for the NL. All right, yesterday, Team USA, they built a big lead against Australia and had to hold on, and the man that did his best, I guess, Mariano Rivera impression would be Tyrese Halliburton. Quiet afternoon for Halliburton. The second unit played very well with him, but you quiet in terms of an individual stat standpoint. But he hits 2 threes in the final couple minutes to put that game on ice. I said this to Andy Sweeney earlier in the show. I am interested to see what will that do to Steve Kerr. If you watch the bench react to those 2 Halliburton threes, that to me told me something about just how they view him in those moments. And again, Anthony Edwards, who was great early, tried to play hero ball late. Those possessions oftentimes went very empty, and it led to Australia buckets. Halliburton let those shots kind of come to him. The second one he hit in Giddy's face, but the first one he was wide open on, great ball movement. So some big moments there late for Tyrese Halliburton. Next up for Team USA, Their exhibition slate will wrap up in Abu Dhabi on Wednesday. They'll take on Nikola Jokic in Serbia. That is another noon game. So noon Wednesday, Serbia. They'll play 2 exhibition games in London, then next week, and then after that, all eyes on Paris for the Olympics.
Yeah, lastly for me, Pacers Summer League, their third game there in Vegas this afternoon, 4 o'clock on ESPNU, facing off against the Suns. Pacers 0-2, Suns 0-1. Someone's got to win today. I haven't seen anything this morning yet on, lineups, who's going to play. I mean, you would imagine Jarris Walker would continue to play.
I'd hope.
Yeah, I would definitely hope so. So we'll talk about that coming up tomorrow. Again, that game, 4 o'clock on ESPNU. 239-1070 pop quiz. We'll do it next here on this Tuesday. All right, guys, let's talk about your windows. And to do so, let's talk about my good friends at Universal Windows Direct. 659-7574. No better time. It's so hot out. I tell you, the last couple days, so hot out. If you're letting all that cool air from your AC exit your home, you don't need to live that way. You knew you needed windows, and now you really need them in these summer months. Universal Windows Direct. Again, 317-659-7574. You can check them out online, UWD.com, and Universal, they got that great deal for you. Every 2 windows you buy, you get the next 2 free. So if you buy 2, you get 2. You buy 4 windows, you get 4 back. There's no limit. Plus, right now, Universal, they back up everything with that true lifetime warranty as long as you own your home, and then 20 years to the next homeowner if you do decide to sell. What about financing? Here's what they got. 0% financing for 60 months. Obviously, no better time to upgrade those windows than right now. Check them out online, UWD.com, or tell them the fans sent you and give them that call for that free estimate, 659-7574.
Picturing a cigarette in the mouth of Tony East.
I told you Tony West when he goes to Vegas
right
Summer
up at the
League.
tables. Now having to get back from his bender of a stay in Vegas here and rest up for a week. Tony East, do we have that mapped out correctly about your time out in Vegas?
Yes, I think you absolutely nailed it. The bender has already started. It's still going. Kept it going on the plane. So woke up early to make sure it never stopped.
Welcome back to reality here. We'll get into the Pacers' thoughts on Summer League so far. Obviously, you were out there for that. I guess I'll start here. I'd like to see Jarris Walker and Ben Shepherd keep on playing in Summer League. Am I putting too much stock into these games or no?
I mean, they're not like such long-term things. I mean, I think they will play a little bit more. I don't know if I care to see Shepherd anymore. And he's just, what is Summer League going to tell me about Shepherd, right? It's just
I guess Walker more than Shepherd if I'm going to nitpick.
Yeah, Walker for sure. You know, the first game he was very good. The second game he hit 5 threes, which is great, but that was all his points, so it's certainly still more to see from him on both ends. But yeah, I even asked Ben Shepherd that, like, you know, his game is not like a dominate Summer League kind of game. You know, it's obviously be great if he could beat guys off the dribble and create shots, but it's just I know what Ben Shepherd is. I'm not dying to see more of him in Summer League.
Tony, fill in the blank here if you don't mind. Jarris Walker has had blank of a Summer League. How would you? Yeah, what would you use there? I know it's difficult.
Yeah, like a B-. I know that you weren't asking for a grade, but that's where my mind drifted to. You know, it's interesting because the first game with 25 points, 8 boards, right, was fighting in the lane and had those nice high-low plays with Sheboy and got, I think, 8 free throw attempts. Like, you guys interviewed Rick, and he talked about physicality and conditioning and, you know, feeling like a beast, right? Like, I'll never forget Chad Buchanan's description of last year if they drafted him. He called him a linebacker twice in terms of size in that press conference. Like, that first game felt like what Rick was talking about in terms of that kind of play. He still had some weaker moments in terms of like a fading away layup and defensively, but in general, it felt like he played more the way they were hoping. And then the second game, you know, 11 threes of his 14 shots and less force defensively. It wasn't there the same way. And, of course, it'd be great if Jarris Walker can shoot threes and hit 5 out of 11. Like, yeah, that's a player you can play any game. Of course, it's Summer League. But, you know, that game was less effective. And him getting into the paint, him beating guys, him drawing contact is kind of what I think I want to see. And would be a better long-term projection for what he can do with his size and him just blowing up plays defensively and sitting low in a stance and sticking on a man. That doesn't happen as much, but he has looked really good as a scorer, an offensive player, and like put up big numbers in a way that you're supposed to do when you're a second-year lottery pick in Summer League, taking over games. You know, like the first game I watched right after the Pacers played the first night was the Wizards, and Johnny Davis was playing. Like, he was a lottery pick 3 years ago, and he wasn't playing that well, right? Like, there clearly is a sign of important success that he's a lottery pick playing well and being better than most other players. But hasn't all been exactly what the Pacers said they wanted to see or what the projection for his growth would be. So I'd say it's been a good Summer League so far, but not like exceptional or a dream path for Jarris yet.
Locked on Pacers, where you can listen to Tony. Great stuff there as always, SI.com. Tony East is with us here on the Payless Liquors hotline. Tony, I have no idea what it's going to look like in the NBA for him, but I like me some Enrique Freeman.
Yeah. It is remarkable watching him in person, too. Like, I feel bad for Ben Shepherd because Ben Shepherd had claimed his stake as the smiliest NBA player I'd ever seen, and he lost that claim already because Enrique Freeman beats him to the punch. And he plays like that, too. Like, he told us this story during his interviews after the second game that when he was trying out for Akron's team, which is already a remarkable story, he actually vomited during the tryout, hid it from the coaches, and then kept playing and made the team. And, like, that's the kind of resolve and resiliency he has, like, all the time, right? He just keeps hustling and dives for the ball and battles on the glass and makes these, like, tip passes. And, it helps. He went 5 for 5 in that second game and defended pretty well in the post. And it was not lost on me that he closed that game instead of Oscar Sheboy at center and did a pretty good job. And, of course, they still lost down the stretch. But the fact that they felt like General Pargo turned to him late says something to me. He's been playing very well so far, both in terms of hustle plays, actually having an impact in terms of on the glass and moving the ball around. He's gotten great reviews from his teammates about the kind of guy he is too. He's been really impressive so far. I don't know what what it all translates to in the NBA, right? He who knows what kind of position he could be if he's a non-shooting big who just rebounds. We just saw that with Shootboy last year, for example, but he did it a 3 in that second game. We'll see what that could be, but he's been very good, and that's generally a good sign if he's just better than the other players as a 24-year-old out there.
Tony East with us here on this Tuesday. A couple more minutes left with him. Johnny Furphy, got to see him up close. Again, I just happen to think this is a guy, Carlisle told us they had him pegged at 14. They have to think, boy, we got a huge steal here. And watching him play, I mean, he's been better than other first-round draft picks early on in the Summer League. What do you see from him? What did you see?
Definitely, I agree with that. And I think the thing that stands out to me is, he's not seen but does not play in 18, right? He's not rushed. He's very poised. He gets up threes at the right time. And the second game, he 18 and led them in scoring. What I wrote about and what he talked about after the game is, he really, you could tell, made more of an effort to attack the rim and, read a closeout or run in transition to get into the paint. And meaningfully, he took 6 twos in that game, basically half his shots. And that was not there in the first game when he took 8 threes out of his 11 shots. And he was finishing there too, right? He'd catch, he'd fake, he'd get by somebody and finish. He dunked in transition a few times. That really mattered to me in terms of seeing more of his game on the offensive end, whereas the first game was just a bunch of corner threes. And, hey, making corner threes is still very good. But if he can have that kind of, well-rounded offensive game, that's huge. And the Pacers play this fast-paced read and react style that you have to read your teammates, you have to read the game, you have to read where the space is, and you have to make quick decisions. For some players, it's really hard to learn. It takes a while. Gennaro Pargo and now me, I've been impressed by how quickly he kind of figured that all out and was able to figure out how he can impact the game, where his shots are going to come from. One of the stats that does typically translate from Summer League is three-point attempt rate, how easily you can get them up, and he's been getting them up, 8 in both games so far. So the fact that not only was he making them in the first game and then really balancing his attack in the second game, finding ways to use his 3 to get other impressive shots with 18 points, he's been really impressive. I can tell that, one, he's going to have to get stronger, and he knows that. And that team defense, he's still, trying to keep up with the speed on that end of the floor, as most rookies are. But, yeah, for a 35th pick, he's had a very good Summer League so far and certainly shows exactly why he was projected at least to go much higher than he did.
Tony, we'll end with this and appreciate your time on this Tuesday morning. I think your latest podcast, you guys center around what's going to happen here with Team USA and the upcoming Olympics here in a few weeks. We saw some big moments late from Tyrese Halliburton yesterday. Obviously running the second unit is going to be the primary focus, clearly, for Halliburton. Do you think into game situations, though, final few minutes, you think he could be a factor at all, or am I putting too much stock into, hitting a couple shots yesterday? I don't know. It seems like he's a guy that I would trust late as a ball handler, and if you get an open look, he can hit that, of course.
Yeah, it did make me laugh that when we did our chat with him about Team USA, he said that he told Grant Hill he's going to be like Jason Kidd and try to see how many assists he can have without shooting the ball, right? His role on this team is clearly pass. Pass. I'm the setup guy, and these teams get so loaded with talent of players who can create their own shot and dominate in isolation that USA often gets too ISO heavy, and that's why sometimes it feels like Halliburton's out there. The rhythm's just a little better because he's setting guys up, and he had a few of those dump off pocket passes into the lane in that Australia game that were just so effective, right? Anthony Davis was a beneficiary of that. So was Bam. So maybe so if they really need to get their offense in gear, they would close with him or use him in that way to just be a different kind of rhythm setter for other guys. In that way, and clearly he's on this team to pass. And of course, it's funny I say that because he hit 2 huge threes that actually buried Australia yesterday. But I think that's possible. And the other reason I wonder about that is, similar to the way the Pacers play with the fast-paced read-react, like Steve Kerr, the Warriors have always kind of done that. And USA is not going to play like the Warriors, but Steve Kerr certainly values those kind of skills. The players who can very quickly read and react to what a defense is throwing at them. Halliburton can do that. So it would not surprise me at all if Steve Kerr turned to him in some big moments. Of course, the starting group that he's not a part of does already have some passers in Curry and LeBron, but if he can play like that, and so far, both games, his group's had the best plus-minus. He's had the best plus-minus of any player on the team. If he keeps impacting the game, of course, they're going to have to think about turning to do more often.
Detox time for Tony East as he has returned from the land of sin. Tony, great stuff when you're out there. I know probably time, body clock's a little weird right now, so thanks for hopping on.
Making it work. Yeah, of course, guys. Thanks for having me.
Tony East, Payless Liquors Hotline, one final time here on the Wake Up Call. Looks like the rain is cleared out of the area, but boy, I still go back to last night's national anthem, guys.
Yeah, you need to Google it if you haven't seen it this morning.
What do you do? Forgot the words, got nervous, drunk? Is there a good excuse?
I have absolutely no idea. What was her name? Was it Ingrid
Andress?
Andress? I had never heard of her.
Used to work with a Steve Andress. Don't know if that's a relative. I had never heard of her. And oftentimes I ask Maddie, I know nothing about
As a country music singer.
Right, music or famous people, and Maddie's like, I've never heard of her. And boy, last night was tough.
She's going to be in Nashville soon. I don't know if she's good enough for Nashville, right?
Are they going to bump her up to like the noon time slot on Broadway?
She'll be in Tootsie's at 11 a.m.
Does she still get the 7 p.m. time slot or the 10 p.m.?
Ugh.
Mark, you got to warn people.
Ugh. And she had to know it's bad with the trail off that she does on the end of all that. So we'll have the podcast up 1075thefan.com. Jake and Jimmy at noon, JMV coming up at 3 o'clock. We're back at it tomorrow, 7 a.m. Have a good day.